Hello, welcome to Bedtime Stories. So, for chapter one, I'm going to do a little intro. So, Bedtime Stories is kind of like a cold read. The idea is I'm like the grandpa in The Princess Bride, okay? You're chilling. Maybe you're not feeling too good. You just need some company. And I'm here to keep you company and read you a story that I really like and that I hope you like too. This is a live read, no editing, super chill vibes. The title of this story is From Beyond the Grave, written by For Real. Very important tag, angst with a happy ending. I promise it is a happy ending. Oh, and the blurb is Wei Wuxian comes back as a ghost and is there in the burial mounds when Lan Wangji finds A Yuan. So here we go. Chapter 1. When he comes to consciousness, Wei Wuxian isn't sure how long he has passed. A day? 2? A week? The fog of the burial mounds rises up to surround him, drowning out the markers of the sky which might have told him. The world is silent except for the whispering call of the mounds and their ghosts. There is no crash of sword on sword, no tramp of feet, no screams of the dying. The siege of the burial mound is over, yet that hardly tells him much about the passage of time. The fight would not have been a long one, not against the elderly and the injured, against farmers and healers. There would have been no one here who would have opposed the power of the great sex for even a moment. After all, the Ealing patriarch is dead. It's strange being dead, he thinks, as he begins to float through what is left of his domain. Some ghosts are powerful enough to hold human form. Some can even interact with the living world so easily and readily that they may as well still be alive. Wei Wuxian is not that sort of ghost. Wei Wuxian is barely any sort of ghost at all. He is only a flicker, a feeble thing, a mere shred of consciousness, his essence still too devastated by the power which tore him apart to solidify into more than this much, and even to maintain this much, it takes all that he has left. He can feel a pull at the corners of his mind, a darkness flickering, a beckoning. Not death, for he has already passed through death, and not the second final death, which would see him passing on into energy and the cycle's rebirth. No, this is a more temporary darkness, a sort of sleep or hibernation. Something that would allow the ripped up shred of consciousness he has become to heal into something more, more. The ghost befitting the legend of the Ealing patriarch. He will need to rest, need to give in to that darkness at some point. He knows it. He knows much instinctively, knows that if he doesn't, there is little point in him lingering. Not when he is too weak to interact with the world in any way, too weak to make sight or sound of himself, too weak for there to be any point in this lingering. And yet, and yet he clings with everything he has to the world, because he can tell with that same sure instinct that once he's let go, the sleep will not only be for hours or even days, because there is no telling how long it will take for him to wake. No telling how long it will take until some part of him is once again in the world. And in that time, Yuan. It is that one name that keeps him clinging to reality. That one name which pushes Wei Wuxian onward through the haze of the burial mounds. Yuan. boy is alone now, all alone, in this, just as Wei Wuxian himself was once. But Ayuan isn't a cultivator, isn't trained, isn't anything but a child. Only 3? He cannot survive the burial mounds. Wei Wuxian knows this, knows that in his current state, there is nothing he can do to save the boy, knows that his efforts now to find him are completely pointless, just like every other attempt he has made to save the child. All of the wins were completely pointless. Side note from the reader. Just because it didn't work out the way you wanted doesn't mean it was pointless, babe. Kindness always has a point. Okay, back to the story. Just like he knows that Shijie is dead. Shijie is dead, and Jiang Shushu is dead, and Madame Yu is dead, and Jin Sichuan is dead, and Wen Ning is dead, and Wen Qing is dead, and all of the winds are dead, and now he will watch Ayuan die, and be able to do no more to stop the child's death than he has been able to stop any of the others. And yet still Wei Wuxian clings to the world, refusing to let go, refusing to abandon Ayuan to die alone in this cursed and haunted place. Even if he can do no more than hover by the boy's side, unheard and unseen, even so, he can't abandon him now. Not when he brought him here. Not when he was supposed to protect him. Not when Wei Wuxian loves the child as though he was his own. Not when... A sound? A rustle and crunch, as though of someone stumbling on bony ground, and then, impossibly, a call. Wei Ying. Wei Wuxian freezes in place, and even though he is barely a flicker of consciousness, who no longer possesses either heart or lungs, he still feels the phantom sensation of his heart stuttering and the breath catching in his chest. And Zhen? He tries to say, but no sound comes out. Of course it doesn't. He can no longer make sound. Wei Ying. It comes again, the voice hoarse and desperate and raw in a way that Wei Wuxian has never heard Lan Wangji sound. Never thought that collected, poised Lan Wangji could sound. And it chills him down to the marrow of his non-existent bones, because Lan Wangji sounds broken, utterly, unbearably broken. Wei Ying. Another call, another stumbling step. And that's wrong too, horribly wrong. Lan Wangji doesn't stumble around like that. Lan Wangji, the ever graceful, Lan Wangji, whose feet have always been sure, even on the battlefields of the Sunshot campaign. What could have happened to him? Wei Wuxian thinks with growing dread, and then he laughs at himself, because what else? Who else? He doesn't remember having seen Lan Wangji since Nightless City, since before Shijie. But Wei Wuxian barely remembers most of the last few months, so that doesn't really mean much. Was Lan Wangji at the siege of the burial mounds? Wei Wuxian doesn't know. Probably. He is the second young master of the Lan clan, after all, the peerless, righteous Han Guangjun. And after Nightless City, who could possibly doubt that the slaughter of the burial mounds was anything other than righteous? Wei Ying. The call comes again. And maybe it's the fact that he is so recently dead, and maybe it's the lingering vagueness of his mind which has haunted him since Nightless City, clinging to him even after his death. But it's only when he hears the call for the 4th time that Wei Wuxian finally registers the full strangeness of it. What is Lan Wangji doing? Obviously injured, stumbling through the burial mounds on his own, and calling for Wei Wuxian of all people? It makes no sense. None whatsoever. And so Wei Wuxian darts forward through the mists of the burial mounds, following that voice until he sees. Lan Wangji is barely upright. He leans heavily on his sword, his back bent as he struggles for every step, and his back, oh, his back. The layers of white lawn robes do little to hide the damage beneath them, not with the blood so obviously flowing through the fabric, staining it in streaking lines which sketch out a horrifying map of the injuries beneath. It is a wonder that Lan Wangji is still upright. It is a wonder that he is alive at all. Wei Wuxian's first thought is one of self-loathing, of self-hatred so intense and yet so familiar that it isn't until Lan Wangji has nearly stumbled out of view again that he finally processes the sight enough to realize that he's wrong. This wasn't him. He's seen an open, bleeding wheal like that once before across Jiang Cheng's chest. It isn't the mark of blade or undead hands. That is the mark of a whip, the marks of a lashing. And while Wei Wuxian might not entirely be sure of what he has or hasn't done in the last few months, he knows this much. He did not do that. That means that someone else did. The fury that slices into Wei Wuxian at that realization is a shock all of its own. For months now, he has been lost in a haze of dark inward spiraling numbness and self-loathing and despair. Like, hey, big mood. I get it, buddy. We'll get there. Dark inward spiraling numbness and self-loathing and despair. And so this is the first emotion to pierce that cloud since Nightless City. The first thing he has really felt since his sister's death. Someone did that to Lan Wangji. And Wei Wuxian hates them. The thought sends a prickle through him. Not his skin, for he no longer has skin, but through his essence, his being, a brush of resentful energy across his soul. Distantly he remembers years earlier, just before Wen Chao threw him into the burial mounds for the first time, threatening to come back as a malicious ghost. Now, staring at the blood on Lan Wangji's back, with resentful energy swirling all around him and running its fingers across his soul, Wei Wuxian realizes that might not have been an idle threat. Maybe he really can harness this, become one with the resentment in a whole new way. Let the darkness claim him not for sleep, but for blood, maybe. A small cry, barely a whimper, barely anything, but it's enough. It comes from a gnarled tree hidden in the shrouding mist, his left, the tree for which he has been making since he regained consciousness. And it is enough. Ayuan. The memory of the child still trapped within these burial mounds, the whole reason for which he has been clinging onto consciousness in the first place, crashes back over Wei Wuxian, and he is struck by his second strong emotion since waking. Fear. Fear of what he almost did, what he almost became. This isn't like when he was alive, when he could keep some hold over the resentment. Now he is nothing more than a fragile bit of spirit, utterly incapable of calling on the power of the burial mounds without turning immediately from puppeteer into puppet. And if he does, if he lets the mounds claim what's left of him and unleash it upon the world in darkness and blood, then Ayuan, innocent, unprotected Ayuan. Phantom heartbeat hammering in his chest, Wei Wuxian darts in the direction of the tree, all else forgotten. It's only when he hears the unsteady, stumbling footfalls behind him that he realizes he is not the only one who has heard that whimpering cry. A third emotion sparks to life in Wei Wuxian's chest, so sharp and so long unfamiliar that it takes him a moment to recognize it for the terrible thing that it is. Hope. If Lan Wangji heard Yuan's cry, if he's coming, Lan Wangji might hate him, might have joined the army which brought about his death, but Lan Wangji is good and righteous. He always has been. Surely he won't take his anger with Wei Wuxian out on a child. Surely. Wei Wuxian finds Yuan first, slumped over in the cleft of the tree just where Wei Wuxian left him. The boy is curled in a tiny ball, his shoulders shuddering a little, his face red and blotchy with tears and fever, and Wei Wuxian wants nothing more than to scoop the boy into his arms and run with him all the way to Wenqing. But Wenqing is dead, and Wei Wuxian himself is dead, and there is nothing he can do but circle frantically around the boy's head, praying that Lan Wangji really does come this way, really does find him, can find it in himself to take mercy on this innocent child who never chose to be tarnished by the taint of Wei Wuxian's love. Ayuan, Lanzhan, please save him. Please? Then Lan Wangji is there, his eyes widening at the sight of the child curled in the tree's cleft. Ayuan. The boy does not answer. Probably too far lost in fever for anything to rouse him. But it hardly matters, because Lan Wangji only stares for a moment before he is lunging forward with a desperate speed his wounds should not allow, scooping the child from the tree and into his arms. Lan Wangji says nothing more, nothing about his thoughts or his intentions, but he doesn't need to. Wei Wuxian knows him, knows that he is good, knows that if there is anyone who will do his best to protect Yuan despite the one blood and despite Wei Wuxian's taint, it is Lan Wangji. If he still had a body, Wei Wuxian thinks he might sob in relief in the sudden, all-consuming realization that Yuan might live. And yet, while the boy burns with fever, it is still only might. And then there are the lash marks bleeding their way across Lan Wangji's back, just the sight of which adds a flicker of fury into the well of Wei Wuxian's relief. They combine in him until they birth another emotion, which Wei Wuxian thought himself dead to. Curiosity. He needs to know if Yuan will live. He needs to know what happened to Lan Wangji. And so, when Lan Wangji steps onto his sword, Yuan still held tight in his arms. Wei Wuxian uses what little energy he has in him to attach himself to the child's shoulder and accompanies Lan Wangji back to Gusu. And that's the end of chapter 1. Author's note: And the Wangxian brainworms are still at it, so here we go again. Do let me know what you think. Reader's notes. That's a reminder to please drop by the author's fic and drop a kudos or a comment. Let me see if I can find the comment that I left. Here we are. I left a GIF. What was it? I left a GIF that was a little sad hamster. What else did I say? Where's the link? Where'd it go? No, I lost it. I have too many tabs open. Too many tabs. Dudes, I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, I said I am immediately dying to know if Wei Wuxian will remember anything from his time as a ghost when or if he gets resurrected. Which I've read ahead a little bit farther than this, so I know the answer to that question now. Anyhow, thank you for listening. And we'll be back with more bedtime stories soon. Hello, welcome back to Bedtime Stories. We're reading From Beyond the Grave, Chapter 2. It's a mark of just how badly injured Lan Wangji is that he doesn't notice Wei Wuxian's presence clinging to little Ah Yuan's shoulder. He should have noticed. At the very least, he should have noticed once they left the burial mounds and the ambient noise of resentful energy dropped away behind them. But he didn't. He didn't. Wei Wuxian dwells on this the entire way back to Gusu, mind flickering from concern for Ah Yuan to concern for Lan Wangji, and back again. Ah Yuan's condition he at least understands, but Lan Wangji's? Over and over throughout that harrowing journey, Wei Wuxian ponders Lan Wangji's injuries, desperately trying to put together what could possibly have happened to leave Han Guangjun, of all people, wandering alone and injured through the burial mounds. Only days? Weeks? No, judging by Ah Yuan's condition, it can't have been more than a week after Wei Wuxian's own defeat. Ah Yuan. For a few moments, Wei Wuxian toys with the idea that maybe Lan Wangji had remembered the child and come in search of him, disregarding his familial hatred of the one in favor of saving an innocent life. It sounds like him. It does. And yet it wasn't Ah Yuan's name that Lan Wangji had been calling through the burial mounds. It had been Wei Wuxian's. Why had it been Wei Wuxian's? And what about his back? Over and over again, Wei Wuxian's thoughts returned to those terrible injuries. He has little else to do but think about them, really. Ah Yuan still sleeps wrapped in fever, and Lan Wangji struggles barely keeping them in the air, and Wei Wuxian can do nothing. Nothing. He's only the barest flicker of a ghost, unable to even make contact with either of them, let alone actually do anything for them. He hates it. Oh, how he hates it. Ah Yuan is all that Wei Wuxian has left in the world. The only thing he's ever touched that hasn't gone horribly, terribly wrong. And Lan Wangji is... He isn't sure what they are to each other. Well, no. If he asked Lan Wangji, the other man would probably call them enemies. But then after what he did in Nightless City, who isn't his enemy? But as for what Wei Wuxian feels towards Lan Wangji, he isn't sure. He only knows that Lan Wangji is the man who is currently destroying his own body to save Ayuan, that Lan Wangji is in pain and bleeding and broken in a way that he was never meant to be, that Wei Wuxian hates it. When they finally make it back to the cloud recesses, Lan Wangji doesn't so much step down from his sword as fall from it, collapsing to the ground with his body wrapped around little Ayuan, shielding the child even as he takes the brunt of the fall against his already badly torn apart side. Wei Wuxian burns to help, even if it means calling on resentful energy in this unstable form, even if it means his inevitable transformation into a malicious spirit. But he finds that even that is now beyond him. The barriers protecting the cloud recesses are strong, and they are not intended to allow ghosts to pass. Clinging as closely as he was to Lan Wangji might have gotten him inside, but whatever residual energy he had from the burial mounds has burned away in the process, and now it's all he can do to cling to consciousness. Every moment he doesn't give in to healing sleep another victory. It would be so easy. Oh, that made me yawn. All he has to do is let go. Let the instincts of the ghost he has become take him for months or years or even decades until he's strong enough to master his new form. The damage done to him by the yin tiger tally washed away by the temporary nothingness of rest. It would be so easy. But he won't. Not now. Not yet. Not until he knows if Ayuan will live. Not until he knows how Lan Wangji. Wangji! Lan Zixin's voice cuts through the too silent night of the cloud recesses, wrapped in a layer of panic and pain that Wei Wuxian has never heard there before, not even on the worst days of the Sunshock campaign. It's well past Lan curfew, but as he races towards them, Wei Wuxian can see that Lan Zixin is still fully dressed, his sword in his hand, as though he was just about to mount it when he heard their return. Where have you been? I went to check on you and you were gone, and Lan Zixin's voice trails away as he sees the child Lan Wangji's body is still wrapped around. Wangji? Lan Zixin's voice is more uncertain this time as he drops to kneel at his brother's side. Lan Wangji says nothing. At first, Wei Wuxian thinks that Lan Wangji might have fallen unconscious, but then he sees the way the other man's arms tighten around Ayuan. Lan Zixin must see it too, because he extends a tentative hand to the boy. Wangji, what child is this? Where have you been? You know you aren't permitted to... His fingers brush Ayuan's skin, and his voice trails away into a quiet gasp. Oh, he's burning up. Lan Zixin takes a shuddering breath, eyes going from Ayuan to Lan Wangji and back again. And even by the dim light of moon and star, Wei Wuxian can see that the Lan sect leader looks aged, tired, and aching in a way Wei Wuxian has never seen him. What has happened to these two? For a moment, Wei Wuxian feels indignation well within him. I've only been dead for a few days, after all. How has the world managed to change this much this quickly? But has it really been quickly? He barely remembers the last few months, and even before that, he's been cooped up in the burial mounds for over a year, with very little news of the outside world. How much has he missed in that time? With a sudden stabbing pain, Wei Wuxian remembers Lan Wangji sitting across from an inn table from him and Yiling, telling him the latest news that Shijie. The thought must trap him in darkness for a few minutes, because when he comes back to himself, it's to a non-healer pulling Ayuan into his arms, while another one helps Lan Zixin to support Lan Wangji's weight. Instantly, Wei Wuxian detaches himself from Ayuan, darting away from him as quickly as he can. The last thing the child needs is for the Lan healer to sense Wei Wuxian on him and come to the conclusion that Yuan is cursed or possessed or something. At that, the healer twitches a little in Wei Wuxian's direction, as though unsure if he sensed something or not, and so Wei Wuxian shrinks back further, unwilling to put Yuan at risk by even daring to be near him. It's hard watching the boy who was almost a son to him, being carried away ill and unconscious, and being unable to follow, unable to hover around the healers and eavesdrop, unable to learn anything. But Ayuan's best chance now is to win the favor of the cloud recesses, and Wei Wuxian refuses to do anything to put that in danger, and so, unable to go after Ayuan, Wei Wuxian chooses instead to follow Lan Wangji. That's the end of that chapter. Author's endnote. I was planning to cover more this chapter, but ended up spending longer than I planned on the flight back, because Wei Wuxian was mentally spiraling, and this felt like a natural chapter break, so I decided to stop here for now. More soon. Reader's note. Things are getting a little desperate and confused for Wei Wuxian here. Our boy is struggling. Let's see, what did my comments say on this chapter? I hope that Wei Ying is able to communicate with Lan Zhan. Same. Oh. I'm wondering if Wei Wuxian will be able to grow strong enough to reply if Lan Wangji plays inquiry for him. How would that change things? And then the author replied to me and said, if he played inquiry, then yeah, probs could, but unfortunately, Lan Wangji also isn't well enough to play. Sad face, sad face, sad face. Okay, well, thanks for listening to this chapter, and I'll be back with more bedtime stories soon. Hello. Hello, and welcome to Bedtime Stories. This is From Beyond the Grave by Variel, Chapter 3. Hold on. I thought I was ready to start recording, but I got a frog in my throat. Okay. All right. Okay. Yep, that's better. It takes a few days for Wei Wuxian to learn anything. On that first night, the healer examines Lan Wangji's back, then speaks to Lan Zixin in a low murmur. And while Wei Wuxian catches phrases like needs to be more careful and possible long-term damage, and thought he was supposed to be confined, it's exactly the sort of thing he expects a healer, any healer, to say, and so he doesn't read anything particular into the words. Not at first, anyway. But then time begins to pass. Lan Wangji spends the night, and then the following day, on his stomach. Excuse me. Wow, this is not off to a great start. First, my throat was all froggy, and then I've got hiccups going on. I'm going to pause for a second. Hold on, y'all.
Okay. But then time begins to pass. Lan Wangji spends the night and then the following day on his stomach, unable to attempt a proper non-sleeping position due to the injuries to his back. He doesn't speak, and he doesn't move, and Wei Wuxian thinks he might be meditating, but then he sees the empty look in Lan Wangji's open eyes, and realizes with a horrible jolt that the other man is simply staring into space. It must be the pain, Wei Wuxian thinks, and maybe that makes sense, because his back must be in agony, and yet... Buddy, I think it's more in an emotional pain. And yet Wei Wuxian knows, what Lan Wangji looks like when he's in pain, when he's trying to suppress it, walking and running and fighting on a broken leg, and this isn't like that at all. This doesn't look like Lan Wangji is trying to suppress the pain. This looks as though he's given up. Lan Zhan, what happened to you? Wei Wuxian tries to ask the question so many times, but there is never any reply. How could there be? Lan Wangji can't hear him. As the day draws into night again, and Wei Wuxian flits back and forth through the tranquility room, alternating between sick terror for Ayun and mounting worry for Lan Wangji, he begins to notice other things. There is a servant who comes to deliver meals to Lan Wangji's door and takes the old trays away, untouched. But otherwise, no one comes to check on the injured second jade. No fellow sect disciples or hovering elders. Not even Lan Wangji's brother or uncle. At first, Wei Wuxian thinks nothing of it, except to fret that Lan Wangji's well-known inclination for silence and solitude might leave Wei Wuxian without an easy source of information. But as the second day passes, it dawns on him that for someone so badly injured and so well loved by his sect, to be left to simply lie like this isn't normal. Is he well loved, though? I always kind of got the vibe that he was highly valued, but I felt like the only one who really loved him was Shin. I don't know. Okay. That's when the words from that first night come back to him and take on entirely new shapes. You know you aren't permitted, supposed to be confined. When he first heard them, Wei Wuxian thought they were only a reference to the sort of enforced bed rest that anyone with Lan Wangji's level of injuries might be expected to abide by for their own good. Now, though, he looks again at those injuries that bear all the hallmarks of the discipline whip, and he knows it's more than that. Knows that Lan Wangji, perfect, rule-following Lan Wangji, is being confined here as part of some sort of punishment. Punishment for what? What could he have done? What could he possibly have done? Wei Wuxian is desperate to know, and yet he doesn't dare venture out into the cloud recesses, knowing that, in his current weakened state, he is all too likely to be noticed and exorcised, and so, horribly, all he can do is wait. He tries to meditate once, hoping to find a way to rebuild some power, enough to make contact with the world even a little. But the moment he tries, he feels that sleeping darkness reaching for him, and he jerks back, terrified of being sucked under, terrified of how long it will take him to surface again. And so he can only wait. And that's a section break. It's the evening of the second day when Lan Zixin finally comes to see his brother. Wei Wuxian looks nearly as haggard and worn as he did the last time Wei Wuxian saw him, but it's been 2 whole days of waiting and watching Lan Wangji's empty eyes and not knowing whether Ah Yuan is alive or dead, and so Wei Wuxian can't bring himself to care. He wants to shout at Lan Zixin, to demand answers, demand to know how he could let this happen to Lan Wangji. But of course, Wei Wuxian has no voice, and so he can say nothing. Lan Wangji does not greet his brother, but he must know that he is there, because he does not startle when Lan Zixin sits beside him and begins changing his bandages. Wangji, as he works, Lan Zixin begins speaking at last. The child you brought back. The healers say that he is suffering from overexposure to resentful energy. At those words, Wei Wuxian goes terribly still, and even though he no longer has either chest or heart, he can feel it still racing. He can still feel it racing against his ribs. There is a long silence, and then, "You went to the burial mounds, didn't you?" More silence. "Wangji, I'm sorry." There's a heavy ache in Lan Zixin's voice, and Wei Wuxian reels at it, horror and despair washing over him. No, no, it can't be. Not Ah Yuan, not... I'm so sorry. Why did he think there was any hope? Why did he think this would be any different? Hasn't he learned by now? Everything he touches, everything. This is his fault. All his fault. He should have figured out how to get Ah Yuan out of there before the siege. Should have found some way. Should have... The healers say the boy will likely recover. Record screech. Wait, what? Lan Zixin's words cut through his mental spiraling so unexpectedly that for a moment Wei Wuxian is sure he must not have heard him correctly. Hadn't he just been apologizing to Lan Wangji, implying that Ah Yuan was dead? But it will take time, and he seems disoriented, so they think it is likely that some damage has been done to his memory. Still, that is nothing he should be unable to recover from. Lan Zixin keeps speaking calmly, as though he thinks his words might do something to help Lan Wangji, as though he wasn't just apologizing. What? Wei Wuxian doesn't understand. I hope that was 2 question marks worth of what. I hope y'all noticed that. He's clearly missing something, but Lan Zixin is still speaking, and so Wei Wuxian forces down his confusion in order to focus on every word. He is malnourished, but they say the condition is not irreversible. He woke long enough this evening to take some broth, which I'm told is a good sign. You can trust they will take the best possible care of the child. Ah Yuan. The name leaves Lan Wangji's mouth in a voice hoarse from disuse, and Lan Zixin startles at the sound of it, his hands stilling on his brother's bandages, as though he is not expecting even this much response. After a moment, he lets out a quiet breath and continues his work. I see. I will make sure young Ah Yuan is cared for then. Thank you. Lan Wangji says it quietly, and Lan Zixin closes his eyes before letting out a shaking breath. And that's a section break. I'm going to pause and get a drink. My throat's feeling a little bit dry. Hey everybody, I'm back. I had a solid 4-hour nap, um, enjoying a glass of green juice smoothie, which is tastier than I expected. So that's a cool way to get some vegetables and fruits that I didn't have to cook or chew on. Where were we? The rest of Lan Zixin's visit passes in silence when he leaves Wei Wuxian. Oh, sorry, I messed up the pacing on that one. The rest of Lan Zixin's visit passes in silence. When he leaves, Wei Wuxian spends the rest of the night darting in agitated circles around Lan Wangji's rooms, trying and failing to piece things together. Oh, by the way, I'm trying something different right now. Um, I've got my Bluetooth headphones on and I'm listening to music in the headphones. That way I can have the music to help me focus and y'all don't have to listen to whatever the mic was picking up in the background. So if you want to, drop a note for me in the comments which listening experience was better for you and which and why. Like, did you like the music in the background or was it distracting for you? Does my voice and my reading sound different with the music in my headphones as opposed to not? Thanks in advance for your feedback. He still doesn't know why Lan Wangji was in the burial mounds, why going would have elicited an "I'm sorry" from Lan Zixin, why Lan Wangji is so badly hurt and punished and broken. Why? 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 But Ayun will live. Lan Zixin says Ayun will live. He will live. He will be safe. It wasn't all for nothing. The next day, Wei Wuxian tries again to meditate, and after a few attempts, he finally figures out the trick of it. A way of sinking halfway out of the world. Enough to regain a little power, not much, but a little, without dropping all the way into the darkness. It will take him time to gather enough power to communicate. Weeks, maybe months, but he will do it. He will. That's when the soul summoning begins. He can feel it, a pull at his essence, a pressure deep within his being, a command to come to heed the call to be drawn into an array. And then what? Be forcibly dispersed? Be sealed into a jar in one of Jin Guangshan's treasure rooms? Fuck that. Extremely fuck that noise, yeah. Wei Wuxian fights the summoning with every bit of will he has. He manages to resist, manages to deny it, but it costs him. Oh, it costs him. The little bit of power he managed to gather in meditation is sucked from him, and it's all he can do to hold the meditation state for long enough to regain enough power to withstand the next summons, and the next summons, and the next. He isn't growing stronger this way at all. In fact, he's weakening. The blackness pulls against him more insistently now, tempting and beckoning, and part of him wants to let go, sink within it, wrap it around him, and use it as a buffer against the constant summoning. Maybe he should. He knows now that Ayun will live, and that was what he was staying for, wasn't it? Sure, buddy. That was part of it. Ha. That news? It should be all right now. He's dead after all. He should be able to let go. And yet doing so will leave Lan Wangji alone. It isn't an entirely rational reason to stay. Wei Wuxian knows that. Lan Wangji is unable to hear him, unable to see him. Trapped in his current powerless state, Wei Wuxian can do nothing for him. Not really. And even if he could find a way to bridge that gap, it's not as though Lan Wangji would actually want Wei Wuxian there,
would he? Wei Wuxian is probably the last person Lan Wangji wants right by his side right now. And yet, Lan Wangji just continues to lie there, day after day, a puppet with his strings cut, so empty, so broken. And Wei Wuxian simply cannot bear the thought of leaving him alone. And so he stays. That was a section break. The days fall into a horrible rhythm. Wei Wuxian spends half his time in meditation, desperately fighting to keep his energy levels just one step ahead of the relentless soul-summoning attempts. The other half of the time he spends hovering beside Lan Wangji, talking to him. He knows that Lan Wangji can't hear him, that his words do not extend beyond his mind, but he's starting to think the other man might be able to sense him at least a little bit, because his body seems to relax ever so slightly when Wei Wuxian is near. It's not much, not as much as he would like to do, but it's probably more than nothing, and so he stays. Every few days, Lan Zixin comes to visit and change Lan Wangji's bandages. Bandages. There we go. Oh my god, did y'all ever listen to that song that goes, bandages on my arms and my legs for you, from you. Bandages, bandages, bandages. That was a big part of my teenage experience. And every time I see that word, those lyrics just like sprint through my head. Okay. Sorry for the diversion. Okay. Lan Wangji almost never speaks to his brother, but Lan Zixin still sits with him and talks softly to him about how Ah Yuan is doing, how his recovery is going, how strong he's getting, how without even his memories, he seems to be adjusting to life in the cloud recesses. Lan Wangji never says anything in response to that either, but the emptiness seems to leave his eyes a little every time Lan Zixin talks of Ah Yuan. And so Wei Wuxian is as grateful to him for that as he is for the news of Ah Yuan, and it does something to lessen the anger he feels toward Lan Zixin. For he does feel anger. So much anger. Wow, can you tell I just woke up? Oh my god. So much anger toward Lan Zixin, toward Lan Qiren, toward every elder in the cloud recesses. Realistically, he understands that Lan Zixin loves his brother, sees proof of it every time Zhe Wujun comes to visit, and so he is sure that whoever ordered Lan Wangji's punishment, Lan Qiren or the elders, it wasn't Lan Zixin. But still, Lan Zixin is sect leader, isn't he? What could Lan Wangji have possibly done that could have been so terrible that Lan Zixin could not have intervened to save his brother from this? Part of him knows that he's being irrational, that sect leaders cannot show favoritism to their own kin, but even so, Lan Wangji does not deserve this. Lan Wangji could never have deserved this. Lan Wangji is good. Lan Wangji is broken, and it's horrible. And this should never have happened, and Wei Wuxian can do nothing for him, not really. And spending day after day beside him, helpless to do anything but watch the empty ache in his eyes, it's... If the tears of ghosts could fall, then Wei Wuxian would sob. I'd recommend some floor time, but there's no floor for him to lay on. I think that's worse than not being able to cry, not being able to have floor time to process the emotions. Okay, that's a section break. It's 2 months into his stay in the cloud recesses that Wei Wuxian finally sees a little bit of light return to Lan Wangji's eyes. Usually, Lan Zixin comes to see Lan Wangji late in the evenings, just before curfew. But this time, he comes earlier in the evening, and he brings Ah Yuan with him. Ah Yuan, he's alive.
He's walking with a hand in Lan Zixin's, and he's dressed in Lan whites, and there's a little bit of color back in his cheeks, and he's alive. Lan Zixin helps Lan Wangji into a sitting position, and Ayuan climbs into his lap and stares up at Lan Wangji with large dark eyes, and Lan Wangji says nothing, but he puts his arms around Ayuan, and for a moment, some of the emptiness seems to leave Lan Wangji's eyes. The sight it's a lot for Wei Wuxian. Something about seeing them like that, seeing Lan Wangji returning to life, holding the child who Wei Wuxian thinks of as his own, it stirs something in him. Relief, joy, longing. So much longing. Suddenly, Wei Wuxian wants nothing more in all the world than he wants to have a physical body again, just for a moment. Just long enough to wrap his arms around both of them and hold them both close and tell them it's going to be okay. It's a foolish, frivolous thought, and he knows it. There has never been a time in Lan Wangji's life when a hug from Wei Wuxian would be his idea of desired comfort, and judging by Lan Zixin's accounts, Ayuan doesn't remember Wei Wuxian anyway. And yet Wei Wuxian still wants so badly that for a moment he can't help but picture it. The three of them, just like that day in the Yiling market, shopping and walking together and eating food together like a family. A family. For an instant he imagines it. He and Lan Wangji, a married couple, wandering cultivators maybe, raising little Ayuan together. It really is a ridiculous fantasy. He knows it. Him? Married to Lan Wangji? Some part of him wants to laugh at such a ridiculous idea. Where did it come from? Since when has he wanted to marry anyone, let alone a man, let alone Lan Wangji? Folks, did we just witness Wei Wuxian's gay awakening? No, more like bi disaster awakening, let's be real. Maybe it's seeing Lan Wangji's expression soften as he holds Wei Wuxian's child, the child who is only alive because of Lan Wangji. Maybe it's all the days he's spent now watching Lan Wangji's pain, desperate to do something, anything to comfort him, desperate to hold him close or run soothing fingers through his hair, say anything that will wipe the empty, broken look from Lan Wangji's eyes. Maybe it isn't entirely ridiculous. Maybe it isn't entirely surprising. Wei Wuxian has always felt drawn to Lan Wangji. Maybe he actually... Whatever. It hardly matters. Wei Wuxian is the last person who Lan Wangji could ever want, and even if he wasn't, Wei Wuxian is very, very dead. Doing his best to shrug off his own foolish emotions, Wei Wuxian returns his attention to where Lan Wangji is now running his fingers through Ayuan's hair. They stay like that for a while. Ayuan sitting quietly in Lan Wangji's lap, Lan Wangji stroking Ayuan's hair, Wei Wuxian hovering by Lan Wangji's shoulder, and Lan Zixin watching his younger brother with sad eyes. At last, Ayuan seems to begin to get a little restless, because he reaches up to tangle curious fingers in the dangling end of Lan Wangji's forehead ribbon. Oh my god, that's so cute! Lan Wangji, his forehead ribbon, okay. Lan Zixin starts forward instinctively to help detach the child, but before he can do anything, Lan Wangji untangles the ribbon from his hair and lets it fall into Ayuan's hands. Lan Zixin stares. Wei Wuxian stares. Ayuan, seemingly oblivious to the sudden tension in the room, runs his fingers over the ribbon and smiles. It's soft. Lan Wangji nods. It is. Would you like one of your own? It's the most Lan Wangji has spoken. Ooh, sorry, that was Lan Wangji talking. Lan Wangji nods. It is. Would you like one of your own? It's the most Lan Wangji has spoken in the entire 2 months Wei Wuxian has hovered beside him, and the sound of his voice catches the ghost so much by surprise that it takes a moment to actually absorb the meaning of the words. When he does, he starts so badly that he accidentally flickers in place before catching himself and holding very still. When it's just him and Lan Wangji, he's constantly darting freely around the room. But whenever Lan Zixin is there, Wei Wuxian always tries to keep still and minimize his presence as much as he can, ever worried that Zhewu Jun will eventually catch on to the fact that his brother is being haunted by more than just whatever ghosts plague his mind. Fortunately, Lan Zixin doesn't seem to notice Wei Wuxian's slip, too busy staring at Lan Wangji over the head of A Yuan, who's nodding. Wangji, are you sure? Lan Wangji meets his brother's eyes, his expression more resolute and more present than it has been at any time during the last 2 months, and nods. That's a Lan Wangji mic drop moment. What a king. We stand. Lan Zixin takes a long breath, closes his eyes briefly, then opens them again and nods in return. All right. I will speak to Uncle and the elders and let them know that Ayuan will be staying with us. And that is a section break. After that day, things change a lot, and not at all. Once a week, Lan Zixin brings Ayuan, now formally known as Lan Yuan, to visit Lan Wangji, and every time he comes, Wei Wuxian watches a little of the life returned to Lan Wangji's eyes. And every time he sees the change, the ghost wants to cry with relief, until he is as grateful for Ayuan's visits for Lan Wangji's sake as he is for his own. Oh, excuse me. That was a big yawn. Okay. Am I done yawning? Maybe. Lan Wangji never says much, but he listens attentively to Ayuan's words, as that little voice talks about the rabbits he's seen, or his new cousins, or about the pictures he's been drawing, or about a pretty flower he wants to show Lan Wangji when father is better. But then the hour passes and Lan Zixin takes Ayuan away again, and the light fades out of Lan Wangji's eyes all over again. And Wei Wuxian hovers close beside him, hoping that whatever little spark of presence he gives off might be enough to provide even a little comfort, even as Wei Wuxian's own heart breaks for Lan Wangji all over again. What happened to him? Who did this to him? What did he do? What happened to him? Why? How? The questions chase themselves through Wei Wuxian's mind day in and day out, and still he has no answers, and still he can get no stronger. Still, it is all he can do to build up enough power to resist the endless soul summonings and the ever more hungry pressure of darkness. Another 4 months pass in this way before Wei Wuxian finally has his answers. And that's the end of the chapter. And the author's note, poor Ghost Wei Wuxian. He's going through so much. Very sad face. I agree. Wei Wuxian is having a time. It is a shitty time. Okay, well, thanks for listening to this late night and early morning session of Bedtime Stories. And I'll be back soon with another chapter. Hello, and welcome back to Bedtime Stories, We're continuing from Beyond the Grave in Chapter 4. It's one of the days when Lan Zixin comes to care for Lan Wangji's back, and so, as ever for those sessions, he does not bring Ayuan. Lan Wangji sits up at his brother's approach and shifts to allow him easy access to his bandages. But as ever, when Ayuan is not present and Lan Wangji remains silent and empty-eyed. Lan Zixin is silent as he changes the bandages, only looking at his brother with sad eyes, and Wei Wuxian hovers in the corner, trying not to draw Lan Zixin's attention, and everything is the same as it always is. But this time, when he finishes his work, Lan Zixin doesn't leave. Instead, he shifts so that he is sitting beside Lan Wangji on the bed, takes a deep breath, and begins to talk. Wangji, this can't go on. Lan Wangji says nothing. I know you are grieving, and I know you have a right to grief, but it's been half a year, and continuing on like this. Lan Zixin shakes his head, his voice achingly gentle. I won't claim to know what will help you heal, but at some point you must continue to live. Lan Wangji bows his head. I know. His voice is hoarse from lack of use, and there is no life in it, no conviction, no energy, only a horrible sense of duty. Lan Zixin places a gentle hand on his brother's forearm. Maybe if you tried to stay busy, it would help you. I may not. I have another 2 years in confinement. There is no anger in Lan Wangji's voice, no recrimination or accusation. He is simply stating a fact. Oh, excuse me. Wei Wuxian recoils a little. 2 more years? On top of however long he's already been in confinement, and on top of having his back torn apart. Why? Wei Wuxian recoils a little. 2 more years? On top of however long he's already been in confinement, and on top of having his back torn apart. Why? I think you're gonna regret when you find out the answer to this, Wei Wuxian, at the same time as you'll be satisfied to know, but let's find out. Wei Wuxian wants to scream the word, the question that has haunted him day in and day out for the last 6 long agonizing months, rising again in him, but no matter how hard he tries to let it out, even after all this time, he can still make no sound. Side note, we're in a blanket fort right now. Let me know if that changes the sound quality for you. Better, worse, indifferent. I know, Lan Zixin is saying, but I can bring you books from the library. You could read or study or learn new music. I could bring paper too if you wanted to write or draw. He sounds a little bit desperate, and Wei Wuxian doesn't have to be a Lan to know the sect leader is offering to bend whatever rules govern confinement, almost to the breaking point in his attempt to breathe life back into his younger brother. Lan Wangji bows his head again, but he says nothing. Okay, you know what? Actually, I'm going to take a little nap in my blanket fort here, and then I'm going to read some more when I wake up. All right, my dudes, I am back. I had a 6-hour nap. That was amazing. I never sleep that long. Felt so good. Here I am. My new cat, if you don't know, I got a cat a couple days ago. His name is Norbert. He's a delightful little prince of the void. He's about a year old, black with a couple white hairs here and there for flavor.
And he's a purring monster machine, like champion purr. So good. That was his bell you could hear jingling, probably. Norbert has this thing where he likes to wake up around 3:30 and go get a little snack in what I call the liminal time uh, snack endeavor, and then he needs to make a pit stop. But he can't do these things by himself in the dark. He has to have his emotional support human available, um, and keeping him company while he eats and uses the litter box. So I have changed my schedule around, so I go to sleep much earlier in the day, and then when it's 3:30, 4 o'clock, and Norbert needs me, so he can do his liminal spaces, the liminal hour activities, I can just be awake without being mad about it, and it's optimal podfic time because my roomies are asleep. Having said all that, no time elapsed for you, the reader. It's been quite some time for me. Let's jump back into the story. Wang Ji, Lan Zixin takes a shuddering breath, and then he squares his shoulders as though going into battle and says, Wei Wuxian would not want this for you. That gets Lan Wangji's attention. His head snaps up, and he turns to stare at his brother, something flickering in the depths of his eyes. For his part, Wei Wuxian is reeling, utterly thrown by his sudden inclusion into the conversation. For a moment, he thinks he's been found out, thinks that Lan Zixin is about to expose his presence as part of some ploy to exorcise Wei Wuxian and upset Lan Wangji into snapping out of his pain all at the same time. And honestly, if it would help Lan Wangji, Wei Wuxian wouldn't even mind it. But no, Lan Zixin isn't reaching for an exorcism talisman or even looking at him. His entire attention still locked on his younger brother. So how? The sect leader's right, of course. More right than he could possibly know. But how could he know? And why bring Wei Wuxian, of all people, up so suddenly? Oh, Wei Wuxian, you don't even know. But you soon will. He's so completely thrown off by the sudden turn in conversation that it actually takes Wei Wuxian a moment to realize that what he's seeing in Lan Wangji's eyes, or rather to realize what it means for him to be seeing anything at all there. Lan Wangji is responding to the sound of Wei Wuxian's name, responding with an awareness of the world that the ghost only ever sees in him when Ayuan is present. Yet this time, the expression reflected in those pale eyes isn't a softening, a warming. It's pain. Pain raw and rending and so shocking after months of seeing empty nothingness in those eyes that the realization strikes Wei Wuxian with all the force of a blow. What? But Wei Wuxian barely has time to think the question before Lan Zixin is speaking again. I know you think you failed him, but you did everything you could. Standing with him after Nightless City was... Lan Zixin's lips abruptly snap shut, biting back whatever he was going to say. He takes another shuddering breath and then continues more calmly. You risked everything in order to protect him. Surely he would not want to see you destroyed for the sake of his memory. For a long moment, Lan Wangji's eyes stay locked on his brother's, but then at last he looks away. I should have done more. This time, not all of the roughness in Lan Wangji's voice can be attributed to prolonged silence. I understand why you would feel that, but Wangji... Lan Zixin tightens his hold on his brother's arm. You cannot torture yourself with what-ifs forever. I know that you were in love with him, and I know that you will always grieve him,
But even so, this cannot go on, if not for your sake, then for the sake of Wei Gong's son. That's who Ayuan really is, isn't he?
Who have you told?
There's a new alertness in Lan Wangji's voice now, a tension that has been entirely absent for the last 6 months. No one, and I won't. Lan Zishen's voice is firm. But you've made a commitment to that child, Wangji, and so for his sake. The rest of whatever Lan Zishen has to say is lost to Wei Wuxian, drowned out by an ever louder ringing in his ears. He isn't even sure any longer whether he's frozen in place or flickering madly fit to give himself away. He can't bring himself to think about it. He can't bring himself to care. He can't bring himself to be aware of anything beyond Lan Zishen's words. Standing with him after Nightless City was risk losing everything in order to protect him. In love with him? I know that you were in love with him. No, that's not. No.
Wei Wuxian just got his worldview rocked.
Wei Wuxian kept waiting for Lan Wangji to deny it, to laugh in his brother's face even. But he didn't. He doesn't. And the way Lan Zishen said it, as though it was a known fact, a secret, long hanging between them. And that's not, it can't. He didn't, he doesn't, Lan Zhan, you, it's not possible. Lan Wangji hated him, right? Right? He wanted to see Wei Wuxian dead, didn't he? That's how it was, right? Lan Wangji never even liked him, right? He never would have.
William,
A memory burns before Wei Wuxian's eyes. Lan Wangji stumbling through the burial mounds, back torn open, every step clearly agony, calling, not for Ayuan, but for Wei Wuxian, voice raw and tears in his eyes, calling and calling as though his heart was breaking.
William.
A shudder goes all through the ghost, and suddenly he can't not hear it, can't not see it. Lan Zhan, did you really? All this time? Why would you? Why? Lan Zishen's words rise up again in his memory, washing over him in fresh waves of horror and understanding. Standing with him after Nightless City was, risked losing everything in order to protect. He can't have. He wouldn't have. But Wei Wuxian doesn't remember after Nightless City, only remembers waking in the demon-quelling cave a few days later, and then only a handful of snatches of the months between then and his death, his mind too shredded by grief and dark power for the retention of conscious thought and memory. Only a few things stand out clearly to him from that time. His decision, in one of his few lucid moments, to destroy the Yin Tiger Tally. Would that be Yin? The flurry of research and experiments that it had taken to find a way to do so, shoving Ayuan into that tree, and finally, as the great sex closed in all around him, the destruction of the Yin Tiger Tally, and the horrific backlash, the rending of his own body that had followed. At the time, and immediately after his death, Wei Wuxian saw the patchy blankness of his memory as a mercy. Now, though, he wishes with every fiber of his being that he could recall something, anything about that time. Lan Zhan, what did you do? What did you do? That is one exclamation and 3 question marks, by the way, in case you did not hear it in my voice. He wants to deny it, wants to say that Lan Wangji would never have, and yet with Lan Zixin's words, everything falls horribly into place. What crime could the great Han Guangjun commit? What crime could anyone commit that was so horrific that it could justify tearing someone's entire back apart with a discipline whip? Oh, just disagreeing with the clan elders, because fuck those old goats with a rusty implement. Okay. What could Lan Wangji have done that was so unforgivable that not even Lan Zixin, with all his obvious love for his younger brother, could shield him from this vicious punishment? The answer is all the same. Take the Yiling patriarch's side after the massacre at Nightless City. He wants to deny it, deny every one of Lan Zixin's words, and yet how can he when Lan Wangji does not deny it? How can he when Lan Zixin's words make everything fall into place? Wei Wuxian wants. He doesn't know what he wants. To scream, to cry, to shout at Lan Wangji that Lan Zixin is right, that Wei Wuxian isn't worth and never would have wanted this for him. To hold Lan Wangji close and never let him go. He can't do any of it. He's a ghost. He's already dead. And just like that, Wei Wuxian suddenly knows what he has to do. He is dead. He is gone. But clearly Lan Wangji isn't moving on, can't move on, can't stop blaming himself, as though what happened to Wei Wuxian could ever have been his fault. Yet, I should have done more. The pain in those words, the empty, aching self-recrimination, echo of all those endless days where Lan Wangji lay and watched the world through empty, broken eyes.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Oh my god. Okay, so I have an Echo Dot my sister gave to me in the kitchen, and my apartment is all like one open floor plan with the kitchen and the living room all together, and I sleep on the couch in the living room. That's my room. Because we got 3 people in a 2-bedroom place, and I'll take the couch, no big deal. So every time I'm reading a story and I say the word echo just right, it it thinks I'm talking to it. It's so funny. The first time it happened scared me so bad. Okay. Sorry, that totally broke the mood. Wei Wuxian is very sad. Here we go, very sad. He blames himself, and he refuses to let go, refuses to move on, refuses to heal. If he will not even listen to Lan Zixin, then there is only one person who may be able to take those feelings from Lan Wangji. Only Wei Wuxian himself. If he can just speak to Lan Wangji, tell him that none of it was his fault. Tell him that Lan Zixin is right, that Wei Wuxian doesn't want this, not his pain or his sorrow, that Wei Wuxian wants him to keep living, to raise Ayuan to be happy, and to fall in love again even. But Wei Wuxian is a powerless ghost, and he cannot speak, so he must let go. Every day he has felt the dark pulling at him, trying to drag him down into the hibernation that his spirit so desperately needs in order to form a proper, powerful ghost. And every day He has struggled against it, and against all the cultivators who have tried to summon him, and every day he is growing weaker. He would not have been able to stay conscious for much longer anyway, and now he will let go. He does not know how long he will sleep, but it is likely that his struggles to stay conscious have only served to add years to his recovery. It could be a decade. It could be 2. It could be that by the time he wakes to the world again, Ayuan will be grown with children of his own. He hates the idea of missing so much of his son's life, just as he hates the idea of leaving Lan Wangji for even a fraction of that time. Yet, what other option is there? Right now, Wei Wuxian can do nothing for him, not really. And besides, Lan Wangji is powerful, the most powerful cultivator in their generation. His life will undoubtedly be measured in centuries rather than years or decades. So really, a decade or 2 isn't that long, is it? Time is vague. Time is so subjective in experience. Oh, one day can last eons, and 20 years can go by you blink and it's... Wei Wuxian tells himself this and many other things, and none of it eases the pain of leaving Lan Wangji alone. And yet, what else can he do? What else can he possibly do? And the sooner begun, the sooner returned. So Wei Wuxian takes one last, long, longing look at Lan Wangji, at the man who, for some reason, despite everything, somehow seems to love him and swears that someday he will find a way back to him. Then he lets go, and the darkness claims him. And that's the end of that chapter. To clarify, this is author's note. Yes, Lan Zixin thinks that Ayuan is Wei Wuxian's biological child. Lan Wangji knows he isn't, but isn't bothering to correct him, because the only thing he cares about in the moment is making sure that Ayuan isn't in any danger. Even if he doesn't think anyone in the cloud recesses would kill a child in cold blood, he can't say the same about the rest of the cultivation world. Also, to be clear, after that conversation with Lan Zixin, Lan Wangji does start to come out of it a bit for Ayuan's sake. But of course, Wei Wuxian won't be there to see it. I think there's only going to be one more chapter after this, but if it starts getting long, I'll split it into 2, so we'll see. Haha. That's a fun game you play with yourself, author. There's 7 chapters total, and this is only 4. Let's see. What did I say in my comment when this chapter came out? I think I hadn't started recording with Vic yet at that time. So I left a GIF comment on the bit where Lan Wangji bows his head and says, "I know." And it was a very sad hamster. That's how I felt when I read that part. Yeah. Very sad hamster. And then I said something very hateful about the land elders. They are a bunch of reactionary hypocrites. Lan Wangji did absolutely nothing wrong to deserve getting whipped like that. And then I said, I hope this time, when Wei Wuxian comes back, I hope he remembers that Ayuan lived and Lan Wangji loves him. Because what a difference that could make to his resurrection experience. Well, all right. I'm going to stop this recording now. Thanks for listening. and I'll be back with another episode of Bedtime Stories very soon.
Hello, and welcome back to Bedtime Stories from Beyond the Grave by For Real, Chapter 5. It's been a bit since I was able to record on this story. Sick for a little while. Mostly recovered, lingering coughs. Hopefully that doesn't catch me. But I didn't want this fic to feel neglected, so I'm back. Wei Wuxian wakes to the feel of a foot colliding with his stomach, which is strange for several reasons, not the least of which that the last time he looked, he didn't actually have a stomach, or any other body part for that matter. Playing dead? Think for a moment whose land you're living on, whose rice you're eating, and whose money you're spending. The voice is whiny and unpleasant, and Wei Wuxian turns it out almost instantly, along with the kicks, which really aren't hard enough to be more than a bit painful anyway. Pain is the purview of the living, and he isn't. Or at least he isn't supposed to be. He is supposed to be in hibernation, allowing his shredded essence to finally repair itself from the damage done to it by the destruction of the yin tiger tally, until he is strong enough to take on a form powerful enough to interact with the world so that he can go to Lan Wangji. He is not supposed to be here. Whoever here is, getting kicked and yelled at by whoever this is. What went wrong? Well, that's a long story, and you're about to find out the answer anyway. After the kicker and the yeller leave, Wei Wuxian drags himself up off the floor and begins to explore his surroundings. By the end of his exploration, he has figured out a few things. That this body's name is Mo Xuanyu, that Mo Xuanyu's family are awful, that Mo Xuanyu's awful family are probably the reason he was desperate enough to attempt the blood ritual which handed his body over to Wei Wuxian, and most importantly, that Wei Wuxian himself has been dead for 13 years. A horrible, sick feeling settles into the pit of Wei Wuxian's stomach. Lanzhan. He's left Lanzhan alone for 13 years. Ayuan, too, and he aches at knowing just how much of the boy's life he's missed. But Ayuan doesn't remember him. Ayuan hasn't been grieving. Lanzhan, though. Lan Wangji's empty gaze flickers behind his eyes, burned into his memory by all those horrible, endless days, and Wei Wuxian has to curl his hands into fists and take a shuddering breath to get himself back under control. He knew, didn't he, that it could take him a long time to reform, knew that it could take a decade or even 2, and besides, now maybe he can do more than just appear and tell Lan Wangji he needs to move on. Now he's alive, he has a body, a physical body. Now maybe he pushes that thought away, unwilling to hope for what seems far too good to be true, and resolutely focuses his attention back on Mo Xuanyu and the gashes on his arms. After all, if Wei Wuxian doesn't deal with that first, there won't be any chance of anything else. And that's a section break. When he finally leaves Mo Xuanyu's ruin of a home, he plays the madman, partly to keep up the pretense. Okay, let's double check. How do we say that word? Yes, I know what it means. How do I say
Pretense.
it? Pretense.
Pretense.
Pretense. All right, thank you, Duck Duck. He plays the madman, partly to keep up the pretense that he is Mo Xuanyu, and partly just to blow off some steam, because after 6 months of hovering bodiless and helpless at Lan Wangji's bedside, he desperately needs to unwind somehow. Wei Wuxian, I did it for the lulz, should be carved onto his body somewhere along with the Win brand. Just as like a warning sign. Then he darts into the main hall of Mo Manor, and he sees cultivators with white headbands, and his heart stutters in his chest. Lands. A quick glance over the assembled cultivators reveals that they're all young clan juniors, certainly no one old enough for him to be familiar with, unless... He gathers himself and carries on with the madman routine, resolving to have a private word with them later. And that's a section break. My dudes, I feel like we're getting close to something very exciting. I got this one dry spot in my throat, and I'm holding back a cough. Oof. Later doesn't end up being very long in coming. When he realizes that the boys are using spirit attraction flags, he uses his madman routine to steal a flag and check it over to make sure the boys aren't accidentally going to get themselves killed. And when their apparent leader, Lan Suzhui, asks him very politely to give it back, Wei Wuxian decides that the time has come. I guess I could give it back. Wei Wuxian taps a finger against his chin, making a show of considering it. Then he grins. If you trade with me... Trade with you? Lan Jingyi, who had been chasing Wei Wuxian until Lan Suzhui intervened, sputters indignantly. That's our flag! It's mine now, though. Wei Wuxian waves it teasingly at him. Lan Jingyi looks like he's going to start yelling again in sheer indignation. But before he can, Lan Suzhui holds up a hand to forestall him. Mo Gangze, what is it you want to trade? Quite the little diplomat, Wei Wuxian thinks, and mentally gives the boy an approving nod. Out loud he says, Information. What sort of information? Wei Wuxian's eyes flick over the surrounding Lan juniors again, his heart rate increasing with sudden nerves. They all look to be around the right age. Is one of you named Lan Yuan? Or do you know a Lan Yuan? Is it Yuan or Yuan? I've just forgotten. Is it Yuan or Yuan? Hold on. I'm gonna go to my pronunciation guide. I acquired a new tool. Let's see how this helps. Okay. Pronunciation. That's not it. Come on. Yuan. Lan Yuan. While we're here, let's double check the courtesy name. Lan Suzhui. Zhui. Shui. Alright, cool. Let's go back to it. Lan Jingyi blinks. Lan Suzhui blinks. Wei Wuxian holds his breath. What if they say no? What if Ah Yuan is dead? What if someone found out that he's a one, or that he's connected to the Yi Ling patriarch? What if he was sent away from the cloud recesses, or... Lan Shui points a finger at himself. I'm Lan Yuan? Comes out more a question than a statement, as though the boy is so confused by the question that he isn't entirely sure that the answer is correct, and Wei Wuxian stares at that pointing finger, stares at the boy to whom it belongs. Lan Yuan, Ah Yuan, this is Ah Yuan, his little radish, this calm, collected, well-grown youth, clearly respected as a leader among his peers. He's alive? He's okay? He's really... Wei Wuxian had known that he was, had seen him alive and whole every time he came to visit Lan Wangji, but still, it's been 12.5 years, and considering what's happened to every other person Wei Wuxian has tried to help, including all of Ayuan's family, some part of him couldn't believe it, couldn't believe that Ayuan truly was going to be okay, and now... Wei Wuxian feels the sudden sting of tears in his eyes, and his hand shakes as he reaches out, fingertips brushing over Ayun's cheek, needing to touch, needing to be sure that this is real, that he is real. Warm skin beneath his fingertips, the sound of the boy's startled breath, the widening of his eyes, all real reactions to Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian, who he can see, who he can hear, who he can feel, after so long trapped as an incorporeal specter, unable to interact in any way with the ones he loves. These signs of his own return to reality, to a version of the reality that they share, only makes the tears fall faster. Ivan. What the? Lan Jingyi's exclamation breaks the moment. He's staring at Wei Wuxian, expression caught halfway between confusion and alarm. Mo Gongzi? Ayuan, Lan Shui asks, his tongue tripping over the name with his own startled bewilderment. What's wrong? Why did you ask about me? Wei Wuxian takes a shuddering breath, firmly bottles up all of the instincts telling him to pull Ayuan into a hug, and shoves them into a corner of his mind to be dealt with later. Oh, nothing, no reason. He pulls his hand back and uses it to wipe at his eyes. The tears are probably smudging the hanged ghost makeup into something even more grotesque than it already was. He really is going to have to find some water to wash it off with. What do you mean, no reason? You can't just ask a question like that, burst into tears, and then not explain. Lan Shui's lips pursed together into a pensive frown. You knew my name, but not what I looked like. How is that? Wei Wuxian probably shouldn't answer that. He probably should just shout something mad-sounding and run off, but his tears are still falling, and he hasn't quite managed to collect himself yet, and he spent too much of the last 6 months yearning to be able to speak to the boy, and have him answer to be quite able to tear himself away so quickly. I knew your family. Wei Wuxian gives him a small, watery smile. What? Both boys stare at him with twin looks of shock. Lan Jingyi recovers first. Wait, when you say family, do you mean you knew his birth parents? Wei Wuxian shakes his head. Nope. Guess again. His brain is starting to come back into function now, and he has the beginnings of a plan. Given the invitation to guests, the boys will ask if he knows Lan Wangji, at which point Wei Wuxian will say yes, imply some believable level of past acquaintance, Perhaps letters exchanged about a fictitious mutual study of musical cultivation or something like that. And then, assuming he can settle affairs with the Mo family before the juniors depart, leverage his fictional correspondence with Lan Wangji into an invitation to accompany the boys back to the cloud recesses. With his rational mind, Wei Wuxian knows that Lan Wangji's recovery and confinement must have ended long ago, that he's probably returned to wandering the world looking for trouble and people to save. But even if it's been 12.5 years for the rest of the world, for Wei Wuxian it's barely been a day since his long, horrible vigil at Lan Wangji's bedside. And the desire to rush straight for the cloud recesses, run to Lan Wangji's bedroom, and pull the other man into his arms is far too strong to resist. He needs to get to Lan Wangji. He needs to get to the cloud recesses. He can make this work, can get Ayuan and his friend to take Wei Wuxian where he so desperately needs to be. It's a good plan, a workable plan. But Wei Wuxian only has a few moments to feel confident in it, because when Lan Sishui opens his mouth, it isn't Lan Wangji he asks about. "Did you know my other father?" Lan Sishui asked the question slowly, as though feeling out every word as he says it. "Your what?" Wei Wuxian blinks at him, utterly thrown. "My other father. Before Han Guangjun adopted me, there was someone else who took care of me. Han Guangjun never told me his name. He just calls him my other father, so that's what I call him. When you said you knew my family, but not my birth parents, I thought it might be him." Wei Wuxian's breath catches in his chest as a wave of emotion washes over him. He's not surprised that Lan Wangji kept Wei Wuxian's identity a secret, knowing himself to be the adoptive son of the Yiling patriarch could only ever have hurt and endangered him. No, that part isn't a surprise. What surprises Wei Wuxian is that Lan Sishui knows about him at all. Lan Sishui obviously had no memory of him, so there was no need for Lan Wangji to tell him anything about Wei Wuxian at all, and yet he has. He has made sure that Wei Wuxian will be a part of Lan Sishui's life, and that's, he isn't going to start crying again, he isn't. Weakly, Wei Wuxian asks, "What did your Han Guangjun tell you about him?" Lan Sishui's brows furrow. "Not a lot. Mostly just that he was brave and always stood up for people even when no one else would, even when everyone else told him not to, and that he was the most brilliant cultivator that Han Guangjun has ever met, and that it's important I light incense for him during Ghost Month, even if he doesn't have a funeral plaque." Wei Wuxian was wrong. He is going to cry again. He just can't help it. Nanjan, you. Mo Gongsa, what's wrong? Did I say something? Did you know him? Unable to get any words past his tears, Wei Wuxian only nods. "You did?" Lan Sishui's whole face lights up. "Can you tell me about him? Please? Han Guangjun doesn't like to talk about him, and there's so much I want to know." "Hey, Sishui." Lan Jingyi steps up a little closer to his friend in a gesture that's impossible to read as anything other than protective, his eyes narrowing as they fix on Wei Wuxian. "Don't get your hopes up too much. This guy is supposed to be mad, remember? Who knows what that nod meant?" I know, but he knew my name. That has to mean something, right? That's true. Lan Jingyi seems to relax a bit, his eyes on Wei Wuxian becoming less hostile and more curious. For his own part, Wei Wuxian has to swallow a couple of times and wipe his eyes again before he can be sure that when he opens his mouth, what will come out as words and not a sob. I knew him. Lan Sishui's face brightens further, but there's desperation in his eyes too. Desperation to know something of this mysterious second father who, seemingly, has been a mysterious presence beside him all his life. Just the thought is enough to have Wei Wuxian fighting to hold back yet another bout of tears. Then, can you tell me something? Anything, please. Wei Wuxian swallows again and looks back at Lan Sishui, at Ayuan, all grown up and tall and a respected young cultivator in his own right. He would be so proud of you. Lan Sishui's eyes widen. What? What? It's too much. If Lan Sishui starts getting emotional too, Wei Wuxian is going to hug him or start blurting out things he shouldn't. Probably both. He needs to get it together. He needs to start acting like Mo Xuanyu again. He needs to not have a total breakdown right in front of the Lan disciples. So rather than say another word, Wei Wuxian turns and runs. Behind him, he can hear voices calling after him, demanding that he come back, begging that he explain, but he ignores them all, darting haphazardly between buildings until he's sure he isn't being followed, and then making straight for Mo Xuanyu's ruin of a residence. It's as good a place as any to curl up in a ball and cry. And that's the end of the chapter. Oof. I made myself cry for real when I was imagining how it would feel to be Wei Wuxian reuniting with Lan Sishui. Author's note. So, in my outline, Wei Wuxian was just supposed to just run off when Lan Sishui asked how he knew his name. But this is Wei Wuxian we're talking about. And since when does he do what other people want him to, right? So on that note, this section ended up way more than I planned, and I'm going to need another chapter to finish this fic. Yep. That was so good. Oh, I'm so excited for Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji to meet again. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bedtime Stories, and hopefully I'll be back very soon with more. Hello, and welcome back to Bedtime Stories. This is a special liminal hours edition. It is very much the middle of the night. I just woke up, but I did have some hot tea. I haven't done a warm-up read of anything, so my voice will probably get a little bit less growly as we go on. We are back to hopefully finish up my read of From Beyond the Grave by Ferial. This is chapter 6. There's 7 chapters total. This is, by the way, in case you didn't know, the very first story I ever started podficking for Modao Zhu. And my podfic endeavor is about a month old now. And I wanted to come back to this and finish it up and say, like, look, I finished podficking an entire multi-chapter work. So we're definitely going to do chapter 6, and hopefully we'll have enough time before IRL interrupts to finish chapter 7.
By the time the murderers begin, Wei Wuxian has had time to 1. Cry himself out, 2. Track down some water, 3. Wash the now horribly smeared makeup off his face. Wait, did I say? I meant smeared. 4. Find the knife that Mo Xuanyu used to conduct his sacrifice. 5. Find a stand of bamboo. And 6. Use the knife and the bamboo to make himself a makeshift flute. He tucks it into his belt, between his outer and inner robes, out of sight, but close to hand. Perhaps, if he were on his own, he would not have bothered. After all, he can't control garden variety ghosts and resentful corpses without 1. And the flute, being the signature weapon of the Yiling patriarch, gives an unwelcomely strong clue to his identity. Which one sounds better, do we think? Yiling patriarch or Yiling Lao Tzu? Because I kind of like his Mandarin title, but Yiling patriarch, I guess, is more accessible to English-speaking readers who aren't aware of the original Mandarin pinyin title. Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm trying to pick the right song to listen to in my headphones. You know, the right vibe. Ooh, this is a good one. I'm listening to a song called Sleepwalker. But he isn't on his own. Yun is nearby, and even if he has no reason to believe the boy in danger, Wei Wuxian spent far too long helpless to protect his son. If anything should happen, he refuses to be helpless again. Still, Wei Wuxian does want to get into the cloud recesses, and that will be a good deal harder if he's on the run from a whole host of Lan Juniors, including his own son, for the crime of being a copycat of himself. Oh my god, the irony. Excuse me. Oh, that's awkward. I had a hiccup, burp, and a yawn all at the same time. Where were we? For the crime of being a copycat of himself. So, when the murders do begin, Wei Wuxian keeps the flute tucked safely in his robes and tries... Gosh darn it. I went to wipe my eye because you know how sometimes when you wake up, your eyes are a little bit crusty at the edges, and I blinked and then I lost my place. Wei Wuxian keeps the flute tucked safely in his robes and tries to handle things without obvious use of demonic cultivation. And then he observes and he passes on his observations in the most mad, most sure new ways he can come up with. And when he sees Lan Zishui in danger, he shoves Lan Jingyi at him to teach the boys how to utilize the protections sewn into their robes. He tries to utilize the walking corpses the Lan Juniors had already captured. And when those turn out to be pretty useless, he wakes the newly dead Mo family and sends them in to help. At first, it seems to be going well, but then Madame Mo falters. The other two corpses are knocked aside, and the resentful hand lunges for Lan Sishui. Wei Wuxian doesn't hesitate. He yanks the flute from his robes, sets it to his lips, takes a breath, and the clear note of a guqin rings out across Mo Manor. The hand freezes. Wei Wuxian freezes. The juniors begin to cheer. Han Guangjun! Han Guangjun! Y'all, it's fucking Han Guangjun. Wei Wuxian doesn't need to hear their shouts, doesn't need to see the figure all in white, standing atop the gable. He knows just by that single note, by its power and its beauty, knows the guqin, knows the one playing it. Lan Shan. Wei Wuxian whispers the name, staring up at that figure of ethereal beauty. Did I say that right? Let's double check. Duck Duck says
Ethereal.
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 Ethereal. The American Heritage Dictionary of the English language.
Ethereal.
Ethereal. I think I was pretty close. Staring up at that figure of ethereal beauty, so erect, so proud, much like he always was before. I'm sorry, every time I see the word erect to describe anything other than, an erection, my brain makes it into a sex joke. So I was giggling to myself about that because yeah. If Wei Wuxian had only seen Lan Wangji's eyes in a vision, broken eyes in a vision, or passing glance, seeing him like this, to write that other version of him off as nothing, merely a trick of the light, a dream, a conjuring of Wei Wuxian's imagination. But it wasn't just a momentary glimpse. It was 6 whole months. A conjuring of Wei Wuxian's imagination. Six whole months of doing nothing but watching Lan Wangji's pain and empty suffering. And now, seeing him like this, Wei Wuxian can only wonder how deep the serene authority of his presence really runs. Is he as he seems? Or is this just the moonlit reflection on the surface of a still pond, revealing nothing about the shadowed depths beneath? No, that says shadowed depths beneath. Lan Shan, in his hiding place between the shadows of the houses, Wei Wuxian lowers the flute with shaking fingers and tucks it away again. But this time, when he slides it into his belt, it comes to rest against the outside of his robes. Maybe it is foolish, Maybe it's sentimental. Maybe it's the fact that what has been 12.5 years for the rest of the world has only been a matter of a day for him, so that he's still caught deep in emotions that, for everyone else, have ended long ago. But now that Lan Wangji has appeared before him like this, Wei Wuxian is done with hiding. As Lan Wangji plays the hand into submission until Lan Sishui can slip a spirit trapping pouch over it, Wei Wuxian watches and takes steadying breaths and gathers himself. Psst, Ferial, you have a typo in this sentence. I'm not going to read it out loud, but you should come back and take a peek and fix it. And gathers himself, racking his mind for what he will need for the conversation to come. This time, he is not going to break down crying. This time, he will be ready. Wei Wuxian's self-restraint lasts just long enough for Lan Sishui to finish tying shut the spirit-trapping pouch, and for Lan Wangji to descend from the roof. Maybe he should wait longer. Maybe he should spend longer coming up with a planned approach. But Lan Wangji is right there, where Wei Wuxian can speak to him, where Wei Wuxian can touch him, and after so long spent yearning, he just can't wait anymore. Lan Zhan. Wei Wuxian steps from between the houses, and as one, the juniors turn to face him. Lan Wangji turns too, a slight frown on his lips, as his attention is drawn away from the examination he was just beginning of the Mo family's corpses which, according to Lan Jingyi, so mysteriously arose from the dead to help in the fight. Lan Zhan? Wei Wuxian says the name again, because he can. Because Lan Wangji is looking at him. Because Lan Wangji can finally hear him. Oh my god, it's happening. Hey, Lan Jingyi steps forward, his expression indignant. You can't go addressing Han Guangjun so familiarly, especially when you're only just meeting him. But I'm not only just meeting him. Wei Wuxian speaks to Lan Jingyi, but he keeps his eyes fixed on Lan Wangji. We've met before, in the cloud recesses. We were 15, and Lan Zhan caught me sneaking Emperor's smile over the walls. Really? You actually snuck in alcohol? Lan Jingyi sounds half shocked and half intrigued. Then he seems to catch himself because he grows indignant again. Hold on. You're way too young to have been 15 at the same time as Han Guangjun. You're crazy. Probably. A smile flickers across Wei Wuxian's lips, and he doesn't pause in his steps. But it's all quite true. Mo Gongsu, Lan Sishui begins, but Wei Wuxian cuts him off. That's not my name, is it, Lan Zhan? Lan Wangji has turned as pale as his robes, his shoulders stiff as a board, his eyes wide and a little wild, their gaze sweeping down Wei Wuxian's body to the flute at his hip, and then back up to catch on the curve of his smile. When he speaks, his voice is hoarse, raw in a way that Wei Wuxian has never heard with living ears.
Other people know that story. Prove to me it's you.
He sounds desperate, desperately hoping, desperately fighting not to hope. Oh my god, the best song for this just came on. I'm gonna turn it up. Hopefully you can catch it in my head. Alright. Put that headphone back on. Alright. So he answers instantly.
You bit me.
Oh no, sorry, this is Wei Wuxian reading. You bit me. His heart is pounding in his chest, but he keeps his lips smiling and his tone light and teasing. In the cave with the Xuanwu of slaughter. I couldn't believe it. Excuse me. Sorry, apparently the snack I had before I woke up, middle of the night, but I was starving and thirsty. So like I had one of my favorite little treats where it's a wonder of the modern age, okay? You take an Uncrustables peanut butter and grape jelly only acceptable. None of that strawberry bullshit. You take a peanut Uncrustable sandwich, I guess except it's the Aldi's version, so it's square instead of circle, but like the square shape actually works better with the toaster. And you take it from the freezer and you drop it in the toaster. And you have the toaster set, mine is set to 3, but it's like not quite medium setting. So the outside comes out lightly browned and a little bit of crunch, just a little. Just so the outside's not soft anymore. And the outer layer is cooked. But then the inside is still frozen, okay? So it's hot, toasty bread around the inside, cold peanut butter and grape jelly. And it's just fucking delicious. Chef's kiss. And I served it with a mug of black chai tea with some honey and milk. It was so good. But anyway, I guess it didn't quite agree with me. So I keep burping. It occurs to me that was probably TMI. Sorry. Okay, where was I? I couldn't believe it. There you were, the poised, perfect second Jade of Lan, and you actually bit me. I never told anyone about that. His tone softens, becomes gentler, traces of his true emotions leaking through. You cried in the cave. I never told anyone about that either. You know I wouldn't. Except everyone who's fucking observing you right now, because you're not alone with him. You've got a whole crowd of juniors watching you and listening fervently. He takes another step forward until he's directly in front of Lan Wangji. You visited me in the burial mounds the day Wan Nyang woke up. I offered to treat you to dinner, but you're the one who ended up paying, and then...
Wei Young.
Lan Wangqi's voice cuts through Wei Wuxian's stream of words, the sound of it raw and shaking in a way that has Wei Wuxian's heart fluttering and aching all at once. Lan Wangqi's hand flies out, grasping Wei Wuxian's upper arm, the grip of the fingers so tight that he can feel them digging bruises into his skin, even though through his ropes. He doesn't care. Lan Wangji is touching him, actually touching him. He can see him, and he can hear him, and he's touching him, and suddenly it's too much. Wei Wuxian can't hold himself back anymore. He just can't. all the poised, well-chosen words he thought of flying out of his head as he throws himself at Lan Wangji, arms wrapping around the other man's neck. Oh, this is the way we wanted it to go in canon drama. The hug we were denied on screen. For an instant, Lan Wangji just stands there, utterly stunned, and then his hand is slipping from its grip on Wei Wuxian's forearm, sliding down his back until it can wrap around him, the other coming up to do the same until he's being crushed to Lan Wangji's chest in a desperate embrace. Wei Young. Lan Wangji says the name again, voice no less raw, full of fear and hope, disbelief and longing. So much longing. Alright, did I read it correctly? Let's try that again. Wei Young. Wei Young. There are tears in his eyes now, and his body shakes slightly. And despite his promise to himself, Wei Wuxian can feel an answering wetness in his own eyes. Len Chen, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to leave you. I didn't mean for you to get hurt. I didn't mean to take so long to get back to you. I'm so sorry, Lan Chen. Wei Young? Wei Young? Lan Wangji says it again, disbelief now uppermost in his tone, and some part of Wei Wuxian registering and understanding it remembers they didn't have this kind of relationship, that they were barely friends, that none of this change in him can make any sense to Lan Wangji. He should slow down, step back, explain himself properly. He should, but Lan Wangji is here, and his arms are around him, and all the words that Wei Wuxian had been longing to say for those 6 long, horrible months just come tumbling out. Excuse me, I need to take a drink of water. Side note, I really like the way that the author is exploring the kind of mindfuck that it is for Wei Wuxian to go from dead and floating and either unaware or not retaining awareness of what was happening around him. Not when he was haunting, but when he was just recruiting his energies, to back in the world where everyone else has lived and experienced the passage of time, but he hasn't. He's not quite the frozen in amber metaphor, but he's still in his mind. What was he? 21-ish when he died, if I'm remembering correctly. But he wasn't a baby, but he was so young when he died. I mean, he was a war veteran and older than his years because of his traumatic experiences as a child, and being basically a childhood soldier. But he died so traumatically and violently, and I'm pretty sure that he wasn't quite all there during the last bit of his time in the burial mounds anyway. And then now he wakes up He's still that young, but Lan Wangji is, 13, 16 years older, depending on which version of canon we're talking about. And just like, what a huge moment of cognitive dissonance, right? Anyway, okay, back to the story. But Lan Wangji is here, and his arms are around him, and all the words that Wei Wuxian had been longing to say for those 6 long, horrible months just come tumbling out. Your brother was right, That wasn't what I wanted for you. I never wanted you to be hurt. I wanted you to keep going. I wanted you to move on, to be happy. Lan Wangji stiffens at that, his hands tightening convulsively in the back of Wei Wuxian's robes, even as he pulls back enough to stare down at Wei Wuxian, eyes hardening.
How do you know about that?
I was there. Wei Wuxian says it, quickly, arms tightening around Lan Wangji, refusing to let him go. Not now. Not now that he can finally hold him. I was a ghost in the burial mounds. That day, the day you saved Ayuan, I was there. Destroying the Yin Tiger Tally damaged me. I wasn't strong enough to make contact with you, but I was there. I saw that you saved him. You saved him. Wei Wuxian's explanation stalls as his mind catches on the words. He says them again. You saved him. I thought I was going to have to watch him die, but you saved him. Thank you. Thank you. Xie. Lan Wangji's arms tighten convulsively around Wei Wuxian again, and his voice is shaking as he replies.
There is no need for thanks between us.
I love that callback to canon. I love that line. Okay, I'm gonna rant for a second. I'm gonna go on a tangent. This line, when Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian have there is no need for thanks between us. It's because they're not keeping track of debts and kindnesses given and recompense owed, because their relationship is not like that. Wei Wuxian's childhood in Yunmeng with the Jiang clan was so transactional, and it's like they acted like he grew up in a brothel and was charged overhead for rent and food, and instead of being a child that they raised with the expectation of service to the clan, yes, whatever, but they basically made him feel like he owed pieces of himself just for existing, the privilege of existing, in their clan. But now, with the Wangxian relationship, Lan Wangji's like, I give you freely of myself and my love, and I expect nothing in return. I don't need acts of service because you feel like you owe me. I just want to take care of you and love you and treasure you and pamper you, and it makes me feral. Okay, back to the story. There is a moment of quiet after that. Both of them just holding each other as silent tears run down their cheeks. Surprisingly, it's Lan Wangji who breaks the silence.
You were a ghost in the cloud recesses?
There is a new quality to the desperation in his voice now, as though some part of him is finally starting to believe that this is real. Wei Wuxian nods. I was. I didn't want to get exorcised, or for anyone to think Ayuan was haunted, though, so I just stayed in your rooms with you. Lan Wangji's eyes go wide at that, his voice becoming unsteady in a whole new way. How long? About half a year? Lan Wangji's face goes pale again, except for his ears, which seem to flush pink. But maybe that's just a trick of the torchlight. Why? No. Why? Lan Wangji asks the question faintly. Why what? Why did you stay so long? Wei Wuxian's expression softens, voice gentling, even as he sees again that horrible empty look in Lan Wangji's eyes, even as he feels the memory of that pain spread across his own features. I didn't want to leave you alone. You were so hurt, and it was all my fault, and I couldn't even do anything for you, or keep you company, or talk to you, or hold you, or anything. Lan Wangji's features are still as always, but shock blooms in his eyes. Wei Yang? Wei Wuxian shifts one of his hands to run across the back of Lan Wangji's right shoulder, across the scars which he knows lay there beneath the robes. Lan Shan, you're back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. About what happened after Nightless City. Lan Wangji stiffens instantly at that, jerking back as though stung. Please forget what I said back then. I should not have. There's a new stiffness to Lan Wangji's voice now, a new pain and a new formality, and Wei Wuxian hates to hear it, and he can't understand it, so he just clings to Lan Wangji, refusing to let him pull away completely. That's right. Hold him. Limpet like a limpet. Clamp onto him. Do not let him go. Do not let him go. That's just it. I did forget, or rather I never remembered. I was out of my mind back then for most of the months after Nightless City, actually, so I only know what you did for me from what your brother said. Oh. The word leaves Lan Wangji's mouth in a whisper, and he goes utterly still, no longer trying to pull away, no longer trying to do anything. He simply stares at Wei Wuxian, and Wei Wuxian thinks he can see panic in Lan Wangji's eyes. For his own part, Wei Wuxian isn't exactly calm either. He reminds himself again that it's been 12.5 years, that a lot of things can change in that kind of time, that it's okay if they have, that all that really matters is that Lan Wangji is healing and happy. But still, even so, Wei Wuxian has to know he just has to, and so he takes a deep breath and keeps going. You can do it. You can do it, honey. Just be brave. You're doing great. I heard your brother say that you saved me after Nightless City, and that's how I know what you did for me and why you were hurt like that. I also heard him say some other things about how he takes a shuddering breath and forces the words out. About how you feel about me? Lan Wangji says nothing, just stands there, still and rigid in Wei Wuxian's embrace. He doesn't confirm it, but he doesn't deny it either. When it would be so easy to deny. And that gives Wei Wuxian the strength he needs to ask. Is it true? There's a long moment of frozen silence, and then, at last, Lan Wangji gives a jerking nod. Wei Wuxian's heart hammers in his chest, his whole body vibrating in resonance with that nod, that confirmation that Lan Wangji, Wei Wuxian wants to laugh. He wants to jump and yell for joy. He wants to kiss Lan Wangji. He wants to, but he reins in all of those emotions. He needs to be sure, really sure. Lanjan, I know it's been 13 years. I've been dead for a long time. And I know you might have moved on, but do you still? Lan Wangji gives another jerky nod. His lips move soundlessly for a moment, and then at last he says,
Do not let it trouble you.
Wei Wuxian's eyes widen at that, and then he's laughing. He can't help it. He just can't, because he has a body again, and he is in Lan Wangji's arms, and Lan Wangji is on his feet and out in the world again. And Lan Wangji loves him, and Lan Wangji begins to pull away again, hurt, flickering in his eyes at the sound of Wei Wuxian's laughter. Empty hurt, a faint echo of those terrible, endless days. And Wei Wuxian can't allow that. Not again, not ever. It doesn't trouble me, not at all. He says it quickly. Clinging to Lan Wangji, and he could find more words, more ways to explain how much he isn't troubled. But Lan Wangji's mouth is right there. And so instead of explaining, he just leans forward and presses his lips to Lan Wangji's. For a moment, there is stillness. Long enough for the joy to turn to anxiety in Wei Wuxian's chest. Long enough for uncertainty to begin to work its way in. And then, abruptly, Lan Wangji's mouth is moving against his, tentative only for a moment, and then desperate and hungry, and Wei Wuxian feels a tongue push past his lips, even as arms tighten around him again, crushing the air from him. Then they are kissing, really kissing, deep and ravenous and all-consuming, and Wei Wuxian feels the air driven from his lungs, even as all other thoughts are driven from his mind, the world coalescing down to a single point. Lan Wangji. At last, they break apart, gasping for air, arms still around each other, eyes locked on one another. Lan Wangji's ears are pink again, and his eyes are wide, his expression more nakedly obvious than Wei Wuxian has ever seen it. Filled with disbelief and wonder and a tentative hope which breaks Wei Wuxian's heart and puts it back together all at once. Lan Chan, you have no idea how badly I've wanted to do that. Do what? It comes out as a dry whisper, the desperate hope audible in every syllable. Kiss you, hold you, run my fingers through your hair, tell you that I'm here, that it's going to be okay. Wei Yang, The wonder is growing in his tone, but the disbelief is still there too. And Wei Wuxian can't have that. He can't. Not now. Not ever. And so he keeps going. I wanted so badly to be with you and Ayuan, to be a family with you two, to raise him with you, to be his parent with you, to be by your side, to tell you that I love you. Oh, Wei Young. It comes out as a desperate gasp. Wei Young. And Wei Wuxian stares back at him with bright, determined eyes. I do, Lanshan, I love you. And I know this is a lot, that I've only just gotten back, and that you're probably pretty overwhelmed right now, but I've spent half a year not being able to tell you that, or anything else. So I just really need you to know that I love you. Lan Wangji takes a shuddering, gasping breath that's halfway to being a sob. I love you. I've always loved you. Lan Wangji whispers the words onto Wei Wuxian's lips, and then they're kissing again. Lan Wangji clinging to Wei Wuxian so tightly that he thinks the other man never means to let him go again. And that's fine with him, because now that he finally has Lan Wangji in his arms, he never means to let go either. And that's the end of the chapter. Oh my god, it's everything I ever wanted for their reunion when Wei Wuxian in Mo Shunu's body sees Lan Wangji again for the first time. Oh, that was so satisfying. Oh my god, I'm crying a little bit. I hope I did that chapter justice. Oh my god. Okay, author's notes. As you see, the chapter count has gone up because I've decided I need a full epilogue chapter to deal with the poor confused juniors who have had to watch all of this. Oh my god, I got so pulled into reading from Wei Wuxian's POV, which is, tight focused on Lan Wangji, I forgot the Lan Juniors and Lan Jingyi and Sishui were there the whole time. I would love an outsider POV snippet from them. That would be so funny. So, fun fact, this scene with Wang Xian's reunion was how this fic was born. I started thinking about a fun dramatic reveal scene where Wei Wuxian comes back already in love with Lan Wangji and already knowing about Lan Wangji's feelings, and it seemed fun, so I really wanted to write it. But to do that, I had to work backwards and figure out how to get to that scene. Turns out, how to get there was 10k plus of making my readers cry. Which, you're so good at that, author. You're so good at tugging on my heartstrings. I swear to God, every story of yours I have ever read tugged on my heartstrings and made my eyes water in response. Also, someone pointed out to me on Twitter that I forgot to have Wei Wuxian give back the spirit attraction flag, and they're absolutely right. I did forget about that detail, so let's just assume that he dropped it on the ground before running off to cry. Okay, I'm going to end the recording here, but the universe be kind to me. I'm going to jump right into the next chapter. Okay, welcome back to Bedtime Stories. We're jumping into Chapter 7. Oh, well, actually, I wanted to read you the comment that I left on Chapter 6, because it was a pretty good one. I had meant to last chapter, but, forgot. So I read this for the first time, this chapter, on the 10th of January, and I was like, oh my god, Wei Wuxian acknowledging that a flute being used for resentful cultivation might be recognized. I like seeing him make calculated risks, because he's smart. And then my next point was, Ayuan is nearby, and even if he has no reason to believe the boy in danger, Wei Wuxian spent far too long helpless to protect his son. If anything should happen, he refuses to be helpless again. And then I was like, sad emoji, sparkly heart, sad emoji. And then I said, still, Wei Wuxian does not want to get into the cloud recesses, and that will be a good deal. No, I said that backwards. Still, Wei Wuxian does want to get into the cloud recesses, and that will be a good deal harder if he's on the run from a whole host of Lan Juniors, including his own son, for the crime of being a copycat of himself. And then it was just like laughing until I cry emojis. Let's see. And then I quoted, at first it seems to be going well, but then Madame Mo falters. The other two corpses are kicked aside, and the resentful hand lunges for Lan Sishui. Wei Wuxian doesn't hesitate. He yanks the flute from his robes, sets it to his lips, takes a breath, and the clear note of a guqin rings out across Mo Manor. The hand freezes. Wei Wuxian freezes. The juniors begin to cheer. Han Guangjun! Han Guangjun! And it was like party emoji, confetti, sparkle stars. And I said I really especially liked the bits where the hand and then Wei Wuxian freeze up. And then I quoted, it was 6 whole months. 6 whole months of doing nothing but watching Lan Wangji's pain and empty suffering, and now seeing him like this. Wei Wuxian can only wonder how deep the serene authority of his presence really runs. Is he as he seems, or is this just the moonlit reflection on the surface of a still pond, revealing nothing about the shadowed depths beneath? And then I was like, sobbing emoji. Well, I guess we're about to find out. And then I quoted, but now that Lan Wangji has appeared before him like this, Wei Wuxian is done with hiding. And I was like, the eyes, the side eyes looking emoji, intently looking. And then the cool guy, sunglasses. And then I quoted, maybe he should wait longer. Maybe he should spend longer coming up with a planned approach. But Lan Wangji is right there, where Wei Wuxian can speak to him, where Wei Wuxian can touch him. And after so long spent yearning, he just can't wait anymore. And then I'm like screaming in all caps, I'm vibrating out of my skin. And then I quoted, really? You snuck in alcohol? Lan Jingyi sounds half shocked and half intrigued, then seems to catch himself because he grows indignant again. Hold on, you're way too young to have been 15 at the same time as Han Guangjun. You're crazy. Probably a smile flickers across Wei Wuxian's lips, and he doesn't pause in his steps. But it's all quite true, I assure you. And then I did the laughing till I cry emoji. I bet Lan Wangji is experiencing a blue screen error. Oh, and then I quoted this part. That's not my name, is it, Lan Zhan? Lan Wangji has turned as pale as his robes, his shoulders stiff as a board, his eyes wide and a little wild, their gaze sweeping down Wei Wuxian's body to the flute at his hip, and then back up to catch on the curve of his smile. When he speaks, his voice is hoarse, raw in a way that Wei Wuxian has never heard with living ears.
Other people know that story. Prove to me that it's you.
He sounds desperate. Desperately hoping, desperately fighting not to hope. And then I'm screaming, "It's happening! Everybody stay fucking calm! What's the procedure?" And then I said, "Okay, I'm gonna guess he uses the Yiling visit when he met Ayun, or maybe something he saw while he was haunting Lan Wangji." And then the next thing I said was, "Oh, of course, the cave of the murder turtle." In case you can't tell, when I am reading through a fic, what I tend to do, because I really enjoy when I have the time and the energy, I like to leave longer comments where I quote back to the author my favorite parts of the chapter or the one shot, and some emojis indicating what I was going through reading that bit. And then if we're going along and I have a guess or a prediction about what might happen, I'll say that. And then I quoted, "Lan Mangji is touching him, actually touching him. He can see him and he can hear him and he's touching him, and suddenly it's too much. And Wei Wuxian can't hold himself back anymore. He just can't." All the poised, well-chosen words he thought of flying out of his head as he throws himself at Lan Wangji, arms wrapping around the other man's neck. And then I left the link to a GIF, which in my actual reply is encoded with HTML to embed the GIF, but AO3 did that thing where they turned off images in the comments because some people were being assholes, mostly bots, I think. Hold on. Where was I? We have a little visitor. One of the girls that I'm babysitting came in and said I was being too loud, and I said I'm reading my friend a bedtime story and making a recording. And she is going to stay in here with us and enjoy the bedtime story also, and hopefully it will help her go back to sleep. So she's going to lay down and be very quiet. Yes. Okay. Anyway, the GIF that I embedded was the actor who plays Clint Barton in the MCU coming after somebody and saying, "Let me love you," and giving them a hug. And then I copied a quote of where young Lan Wangji says the name again, voice no less raw, full of fear and hope, disbelief and longing, so much longing. There are tears in his eyes now, and his body shakes slightly, and despite his promise to himself, Wei Wuxian can feel an answering wetness in his own eyes. "Nanshan, I'm here. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to leave you. I didn't mean for you to get hurt. I didn't mean to take so long to get back to you. I'm so sorry, Nanshan." And then I was like, "I am a sobbing wreck." And then I quoted, "You saved him. I thought I was going to have to watch him die, but you saved him. Thank you. Thank you." And then I said, "This isn't helping my tears stop." In parentheses, TYVM, which you probably know is "thank you very much." And then I said, "Lan Wangji, stop being self-loathing about your feelings, challenge." And then I said, "Yes, they kiss." Clapping hands emoji. Excellent confession strategy. Just never let that boy go. Limb arm strength being what it is, and Mo Shanyu Wei Wuxian being small and weak comparatively, I think Lan Wangji wasn't trying too hard to get free. And then I was like, wait, hold on. Have the juniors been here watching and listening this whole time? Because, oh my god, just imagine what this is like from, Lan Jingyi's perspective. And then I quoted back, "Lan Chan, you have no idea how badly I've wanted to do that." "Do what?" It comes out as a dry whisper, the desperate hope audible in every syllable. "Kiss you, hold you, run my fingers through your hair, tell you that I'm here, that it's going to be okay. And then I'm just screaming, ah. And then I'm like, that's right, boys. The winning strategy is hug each other forever. And then I said, haha, reading the author's note, excited to see the junior's POV. And that was my comment on this chapter. And the author, for real, replied, side note, this author is so incredible about how frequently and quickly they reply to things that you write on their stories, which admittedly is one of the reasons why I like reading their stories, besides just enjoying the way that they write and their general, I enjoy their interpretations of MXTX characters and the plot lines they come up with, but I definitely enjoy the fact that they reply so quickly and frequently, which is kind of, it adds to the vibe. And the author's like, ha 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 ha. Thank you for all of your reactions. They were incredibly fun to read. And yes, those poor juniors are having a wild night. Also, yes, you are 100% correct. Monchi really isn't putting any effort into trying to escape. LMAO. All right, but on to chapter 7. Oh, and I had, excuse me?
Chapter 7?
Yes, we're going to read chapter 7 next. Oh wait, I think somebody else woke up. Let me pause this and go check. Okay, little buddy just woke up too, but Gixie says she is certainly qualified to be out there and monitor that situation. And I'm like, okay, well, if you need help, come get me. Otherwise, I am certainly fine to stay laying in the big comfy bed instead of, my couch bed. As it turns out, last night, the way I got everybody to settle down is I put my asshole roommate was like consented to let us have the big bed in his room, me and my sister's 2 girls, and to sleep on my couch bed. And then little buddy, we usually bed him down on some blankets on the floor, because he likes being a blanket burrito, and he popped the air mattress that we had last time by jumping on it. So that's the consequences of that, is that he sleeps on the floor with some blankets instead of on the air mattress. But anyway, last night the toddler was having a super hard time settling down. So at first I was letting her lay with me on the couch bed, and her big sister, who I call Gixie, was in here on the big bed, and asshole roommate, who was actually being pretty chill last night, just decided to, he wasn't ready to go to sleep, he was just watching TV or whatever. But then the toddler wanted to be next to me, and then I've lost track of who was where. It was like musical chairs. People were like, there was this huge shifting around of who was where and who was where, and people getting back up and needing like a drink of water, or they heard a scary noise or whatever. And finally I got it worked out so that little buddy was on the floor in the living room, and asshole roommate wound up on the floor next to him. Gixie wound up on the couch bed, and then I'm in here on the big bed with a toddler next to me, because she was kicking people and beating on her sister, just like wanting to play instead of wanting to sleep. And I was like, well, that's not conducive. I literally had to blanket burrito her and hold her down, like swaddle her and hold her still until she just gave up the battle over consciousness. But It's been about 7 hours since everybody went to sleep, so I'm not surprised that people are starting to wake up. Hopefully the toddler sleeps long enough to let me finish this reading of chapter 7 so I can post it and finally have completed a full multi-chapter work on my in my adventures of pod picking. So, with all of that completely unnecessary context, here we go. From Beyond the Grave, chapter 7. That's not my name, is it, Lancha? Other people know that story. Prove to me that it's you. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is not just a live read for me, this chapter. This is a cold read, which means I have not read this chapter yet at all. So I have no idea what's about to happen. Well, I have some guesses, but this is the epilogue, and it appears to be from Lan Shishui's POV. Lan Shishui, his head whips around to stare at Han Guangjun, and he isn't the only one. All of the juniors are staring, and he can hardly blame them. He's never heard his father's voice sound like that before, and sure, none of the rest of them have either. There's a desperate, aching quality to it, emotion laid bare in a way that Han Guangjun's emotions never are, and Lan Shishui is hit by a sudden realization. Mo Xuanyu isn't making it up. They really do know each other. He doesn't have time to think more about it, though, because then Mo Gongzi is speaking again, and whatever Lan Shishui was expecting him to say, it's definitely not. You bit me. Bit me? Jingyi mouths the words at him wide-eyed. Did he just say bit? Another note from the reader. I wanted to tell y'all, at the end of chapter 6, I was like, I'm going to come right back and read chapter 7, and that was not what happened. It's been about an hour since I wrapped that up, but my throat was starting to have a funky little tickle in it, and I didn't want to cough all over the reading. So my friend on Tumblr, Maelstrom of Emotions, who was one of my fandom besties, had suggested something I'd never tried before, which was to suck on a piece of dark chocolate. And when I was grocery shopping yesterday at Aldi, I found a treat that was freeze-dried banana pieces coated in dark chocolate. So I grabbed those, and it worked like a fucking charm, by the way, males. I hope you hear this and are super excited and feel validated about your advice. And so I found a new treat, and it's so much tastier than, those medicated throat lozenges. And then, Gixie woke up, so I was trying to get her settled back down. And so I decided to just go ahead and upload chapter 6 to the Internet Archive while I was waiting for her to settle down, which, didn't actually happen. And then I posted it to Tumblr. Well, I updated Tumblr that it was posted to the archive. So my voice, got to rest, and I got to soothe my throat. And now we're back for the juniors' reaction, and this is going to be so fun, okay? All Lan Shishui can do is look back at his friend in helpless confusion, even as his ears catch the words burial mounds and Wan Yang. Is he talking about the defeat of the Yi Ling patriarch? Surely Mo Xuanyu is far too young to have. Wei Young. Lan Shishui freezes, and with his eyes still on Jingyi's, he can see the moment his friend freezes too. See the moment that name hits his ears, and registers in his mind. Oh my god, Living Dead Girl just came onto my headphones. That's like such a Wei Ying song. Wei Ying, Wei Wuxian, Yiling Patriarch. Then he's throwing himself at Han Guangjun, and rather than knocking him aside or stepping back, Han Guangjun he's catching him, holding him, and Lan Zishui has never seen his father so openly affectionate with anyone, and he must have misheard. They all must have misheard, because there's no way. Well, Han Guangjun says it again, and his voice is raw and full of emotion in a way that Lan Zishui has never heard it, and what the hell? Jing Yi whisper yells the question, his eyes as wide as Lan Zishui has ever seen them. Side note to the author, much gratitude for all of your tone markers and emphasizing how characters say a thing, like whispering or shouting or with desperation, because that gives me a lot of assistance on how to voice the character while I'm reading through it. And it takes a lot of the burden off of me on having to try to decide how to read it, not like just in a flat monotone narrator voice, but, what sort of expression to give to it. And that's so super helpful to me, and I really appreciate it. That's probably not why you wrote it like that, but just so you know, thank you very much. His eyes as wide as Lan Zishui has ever seen them. Is that one of the other disciples stammers? Lan Zishui opens his mouth to reply and finds he has no words because what? Lan Zishui is like, what the fuck is going on? He has no idea what he's seeing. He has no idea what he's hearing. All he can do is stare open-mouthed at his father, his ever-controlled, typically touch-averse father, openly embracing a man who he's implying to be the Yiling patriarch. That's not possible. Maybe this man just has the same name. Not that anyone would name their child Wei now, but I was a ghost in the burial mounds that day, the day you saved Ayu, and I was there. Destroying the Yin Tiger Tally damaged me. Lan Zishui starts at that, so startled by the sound of his name that he almost misses the confirmation that, no, this isn't just a confirmation of names. No, this isn't someone else who just happens to be called Wei Yong. This is really him. This man in Lan Zishui's father's arms really is the Yiling patriarch. I wasn't strong enough to make contact with you, but I was there. I saw that you saved him. You saved him. You saved him. I thought I was going to have to watch him die, but you saved him. Thank you. Lan Zishui is reeling, barely registering the look Lan Jingyi is giving him. Why is the Yiling patriarch talking about him? Saved him? Saved him from what? What? His mind is a blur and a blank, and all he can do is continue to listen, unable to make sense of what he's hearing, unable to make sense of anything. Not the Yiling patriarch, not Han Guangjun, and certainly not how he fits into all of it. He hears, to his shock, Wei Wuxian, Wei Gongzi. Well, if we're gonna do Wei Gongzi, well, shouldn't we do Wei Qianbei instead of Senior Wei? Oh, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to beta read you out loud. Wei Wuxian, Wei Gongzi, Senior Wei, claimed that Han Guangjun saved him after Nightless City, and Han Guangjun does not deny it, and before Lan Sishui has a chance to process that revelation, Senior Wei is laughing, and then he's leaning in, and Lan Sishui's cheeks go red because Wei Wuxian, the Yiling patriarch, is kissing Lan Sishui's father, and instead of looking horrified, instead of stepping back or pushing him away, Han Guangjun is kissing him back. Confirmed, Han Guangjun is a dilf. It isn't a polite kiss either, not simply a meeting of lips. And suddenly, Lan Sishui has to spin away and look anywhere else, his ears and face burning at the sight of something he was definitely not meant to see. In his desperation to focus on anything else, his eyes meet Jingyi's again. Jingyi's face is bright red too, eyes wide and jaw slack. He seems to be trying to gather himself, and his mouth works a couple of times, but no sounds come out. He swallows, seeming about to try again, and then, Jan, you have no idea how badly I've wanted to do that. Do what? Kiss you, hold you, run my fingers through your hair, tell you that I'm here, that it's going to be okay. William, I wanted so badly to be with you and Ayuan, to be a family with you too, to raise him with you, to be his parent with you, to be by your side, to tell you that I love you. To be by your side, to tell you that I love you. Wei Yong, I do, Lancha. I love you, and I know this is a lot that I've only just gotten back, and that you're probably pretty overwhelmed right now, but I've spent half a year not being able to tell you that or anything else, so I just really need you to know that I love you. Han Guangjun whispers something inaudible to Wei Wuxian's lips, and then they're kissing again, and Lan Sishui is momentarily too deep in embarrassed shock to muster a coherent thought. What the fuck? Unlike him, Jingyi seems to be getting past that problem. He glances in the direction of Han Guangjun. Oh, hey, little buddy. What's going on? I'm not singing. I'm reading a story. Oh my god, can everybody just... Alright, I got little buddy and the Gixie settled back down. Everybody's had a drink and a snack, and they've got a tablet. Everybody's doing their own thing. I'm back in the bedroom with the baby, who is giving thanks for big things, still asleep. And we're going to try and knock out this chapter before the next IRL interruption. Where was I? What the fuck? Unlike him, Jingyi seems to be getting past that problem. He glances in the direction of Han Guangjun and Wei Wuxian, then quickly away. Again, back at their fellow juniors. That's really the Yiling Patriarch? Someone, Lan Shui can't tell who, over the buzzing in his own ears, asks. I think so, someone else murmurs, sounding as lost as Lan Shui feels. It's got to be some sort of enchantment. Jingyi draws himself up. That's gotta be it. He's put some sort of enchantment on Hangongjun. We have to help him. Several of the other juniors nod, clearly relieved to have an explanation that makes sense. And Jingyi starts forward toward the still entwined pair. 3 others just behind him. Y'all, let Hangongjun have nice things. Let him live. Just because he's acting strangely to your perception of his habits doesn't mean he's possessed. Oh my god. Then Shui has to admit the explanation makes more sense than anything else. They all know how evil the Yiling Patriarch is after all, and yet, Mo Wei, Senior Wei, claimed to know Lan Shui's other father, and he cried as he told Lan Shui that his other father would be proud of him, and I wanted so badly to be with you, and Ayuan, to be a family with you two. Suddenly, it all falls into place. Ayuan is connecting the dots. Lan Shui has connected the dots. Lan Shui doesn't know much about his other father because Hangongjun doesn't like to talk about him. He doesn't have a name or a single story about him, or even a family name. Nothing. He never thought to question it until he told Jingyi. And even though Jingyi had pointed out how strange it is, in the end they had both just agreed that Han Guangjun must still be grieving, and that he's such a private person he might not want to talk about something that painful to him. Still, Lan Shui has always wondered, and has hoarded every bit of information he could get from Han Guangjun. After his father told him that his other father was the most brilliant cultivator he had ever met, Shui and Jingyi had spent weeks going through the library pavilion, searching for the names of anyone who had made any notable contribution to any field of cultivation, who died around the time Lan Shui came to the cloud recesses. Does that mean Wei Wuxian was left off the list? Or does that mean they noted it but did not consider it possible for him to have the connection to Lan Wangji? As that time frame includes both the Nightless City massacre and the raid of the Nightless City Kingdom. That's such a bullshit name for what happened there. It was not an unprompted massacre. It was his, in my opinion, very reasoned and rational response to being attacked unprompted and unprovoked. And then defending himself. And then, having a mental breakdown because Shijie, his mom, died right there. And he thought it was his own fault. And that was just the last straw. Nightless City massacre, my left fucking foot. And the raid of the burial mounds, there had been a decent list of contenders, but none of them stood out as a once-in-a-generation geniuses, and none of them seemed to have a particular connection to Han Guangjun. Now, standing in the body-strewn courtyard of Mo Manor, Lan Shui realizes which cultivation genius who died back then never made it onto that list. And he realizes just how strange it really is that his father should impress on him how important it is to light incense, and yet never even tell him his other father's name. He thinks of spirit attraction flags and compasses and all the other inventions that Wei Wuxian gave to the cultivation world. Inventions so innovative and so useful that they have continued in universal use even after their creator's name has become a curse. Fucking Jins. He thinks of his father's silences, his father's refusal to give him a name or a single story, and he realizes now that it must have all been for his own protection, to keep him from suspicion or prejudice, to keep his past hidden from the rest of the cultivation world, to keep anyone from knowing that he is the son of the Yiling patriarch. Hey, you! Stop bewitching Han Guangjun! You know, Jingyi, I think your heart's in the right place, buddy, but you're kind of dumb sometimes. And I love you. You're a chaotic little gremlin. You're adorable, but you're kind of dumb sometimes. Jingyi's shout jerks Lan Suzhui from his thoughts, and it seems to have the same effect on Han Guangjun and Senior Wei, because they break off their kiss and turn to face him. Han Guangjun's arm still tight around Senior Wei's waist. And that's... Excuse me. Lan Suzhui feels his ears turning pink again. Even given what he now suspects, that's still going to take a lot of getting used to. Yeah, well, you better get used to it, because I don't think that PDA is going to stop. In fact, I think it's going to escalate. Lan Jingyi. There is a dangerous quality to Han Guangjun's voice, which has Jingyi going pale and skittering backward a couple of steps before he catches himself, squaring his shoulders as though about to charge into battle. Jingyi, my lad, you're taking the hero worship a step too far. You've got to let Han Guangjun down from that pedestal of hero worship you got him on. Let him be a person who has interests other than what you think he has and is allowed to have love in his life. He is not a statue nor a sexless creature, no matter what you have been raised to believe and fed on the mythos of your clan elders. He opens his mouth, and Lan Suzhui starts forward, hoping to stop his friend before he can say anything particularly foolish. But before either of them can get a word out, they are cut off by a peal of laughter from Wei Wuxian. Instantly, some of the sternness drops from Han Guangjun's eyes as he looks down at the man now leaning back against his shoulder and roaring with unbridled mirth. Well, one of Wei Wuxian's hands comes up to cover the back of Han Guangjun's hand on his waist. Oh, that's so sweet. Squeezing lightly, while the other goes to his own to wipe tears away. Don't you get it, Lanshan? They think I've enchanted you. They think the virtuous Han Guangjun has fallen under the spell of the dastardly Yiling patriarch. So now they're here to save you from my evil clutches. That's it, isn't it, boys? Cheeks bright, Jingyi nods. I see. Han Guangjun's arm tightens around Senior Wei's waist, and his lips linger on the other man's lips. And for a horrible moment, Lan Shui thinks that he's just going to ignore all of them and start kissing Wei Wuxian again. But he manages to content himself with a quick brush of lips to Wei Wuxian's hair before turning his attention back to Jing Yi and the other juniors.
I am not under any sort of evil enchantment. Please deal with the walking corpses you captured earlier and wait for us by the gates of Mo Manor. We will join you there shortly.
The juniors cast uneasy glances at one another, but the habit of respecting and obeying Hong Jun has been too deeply drilled into them for too long, so in the end, with a few backward glances, they go. Even Jingyi, cheeks still red, goes, but when he makes to pull Lan Sishui with him, Lan Sishui shakes his head and steps tentatively back towards Han Guangjun and Wei Wuxian.
Lan Sishui,
Han Guangjun asks, and while his voice is calm, there's something in it that suggests he better have a very good reason for disobeying. I have a question for Senior Wei. His voice shakes a little, mirroring the nerves suddenly fluttering in his stomach. For me? Wei Wuxian looks surprised, but whether it's Lan Sishui's words or his formal address that have caught the man off guard, the boy doesn't know. He nods. All right, go ahead. His words and tone are casual, but his eyes linger on Lan Sishui with something almost like longing. Lan Sishui takes a shuddering breath, and then another, and he asks, "Are you my father?" Wei Wuxian's eyes go wide at that, shoulders jolting and hands twitching, and for a moment it looks like only Han Guangjun's arm around him is holding him on his feet, and then he nods. I am, or, well, there's a new shaky quality to Wei Wuxian's voice, making it sound more like it had that this afternoon when he first learned that Lan Sishui was Yuan. I'm not your birth father or anything like that, but I did raise you for a couple of years, and that's what you've been calling me, so I guess I am. Lan Sishui nods, feeling suddenly unsteady. It's not that he had any doubts left when he asked the question, but even so, having it confirmed, finally getting to meet the man who has been a mystery and an inspiration and a secret grief to Lan Sishui all of his life. I don't remember. I'm sorry. Suddenly he feels terribly guilty, as though he ought to remember, as though if he had tried harder, maybe he could have managed it. I didn't want to forget, he finds himself saying, but I had a fever when I was a child, and I know. Wei Wuxian cuts him off gently, his lips curving into a smile even as tears glisten into his eyes. It was all the resentful energy. Once I was dead, the barriers I had purifying our part of the burial mounds failed, and you were too young to bear that sort of exposure to resentful energy for long. Lan Sishui reels at that. I was in the burial mounds? Wei Wuxian nods. When the sects started closing in, I shoved you into a hollow in a tree. Your Han Guangjun found you there after the fighting was over. He's the one who saved you. I've been awake long enough, I feel like I need a nap.
Wei Yong is too modest.
Han Guangjun speaks before Lan Shui can form another question. Emotion for once so obvious in his eyes that it makes Lan Shui want to blush and look away just seeing it.
You would not have survived until that point if Wei Yong had not sacrificed his future and publicly gone against the sects to save you first.
Lan Zhang. Wei Wuxian turns a bit pink at that and looks away, fiddling with his hands. You make it sound all heroic, and you know it wasn't.
It was, though.
Han Guangjun says it firmly.
The boy should know how brave and selfless his father is.
That's... The Yiling patriarch splutters, and buries his head against Lan Wangji's neck. Lan Sishui's own face goes pink, and he seriously considers just backing away and leaving to go be literally anywhere else. But there's one burning question that keeps him in place, forcing down his desire to run, refusing to wait. Why, though? Why didn't people want you to protect me? He had thought that he had finally made sense of the mystery of his past, that Han Guangjun had kept him in the dark because of his connection to the Yiling patriarch. But now it sounds as though there was something else, something that made him a target even before he was taken in by Wei Wuxian. At his question, Senior Wei pulls his head away from Han Guangjun's neck and looks back at Lan Sishui, his expression softening. It wasn't just you, it was your family. A pause, and then Yuan, oh my god, did I just forget how to say, hold on. Let me pull up somebody put together this really neat resource where one person made a pronunciation guide and somebody else chopped up into individual sound bites. So you can download a soundboard app and port them in as sound effects. And then you can play the names directly on your phone like that. Lan Yuan. I feel like I've been saying it that way this entire time. It's just like I stumbled over it and somehow felt it was wrong. Okay. 1 yuan. It takes a moment for the words to fully register, for them to settle over Lan Sishui, for him to fully understand the implications behind them. He is a one, a relation of one Rohan and of the ghost general, which is Gui Jiangjun, if I remember correctly. 1 young. Distantly he remembers his lessons, remembers that the Yiling patriarch championed the surviving one after the war. But Good grief. That he quarreled with the cultivation chief and liberated them from a work camp, slaughtered the camp's guards, and spirited the one away to the burial mounds. Had he been among them? He remembers his father's words, that his other father was someone who stood up for people, even when no one else would, even when others told him not to. Was this what he had meant? It's a lot to take in, so much, too much. Lan Shui can feel himself shaking as he tries to wrap his mind around this new version of reality. Wei Wuxian pulls gently away from Han Guangjun, takes a step toward him, and then opens his arms. His movements are slow and tentative, as though he thinks Lan Shui is going to turn and run from him. And he does run, but toward diving into his first father's arms. Wei Wuxian's arms close around him, holding him close. And then Lan Shui is crying, shoulders shaking with all of the emotions he has had to absorb in such a short time. And his father holds him through it, tears falling silently. Oh, Lan, hold on. I had a funky blink and my eyes kind of crossed. Where were we? Tears falling silently through his own eye, from his own eyes, through his eyes. Distantly, Lan Shui is aware of Han Guangjun stepping up beside them, of one of his arms wrapping around. Come on. Okay, I'm just gonna, instead of all of this, me taking micro naps and long blinks and yawning, I'm going to take a quick nap, hopefully, and come back to this. Okay. Nap has been had. Let's finish this. Wei Wuxian pulls gently away from Han Guangjun, takes a step toward him, and then opens his arms. His movements are slow and tentative, as though he thinks Lan Shui is going to turn and run from him. And he does run, but forwards, diving into his first father's arms. Wei Wuxian's arms close around him, holding him close. And then Lan Shui is crying, shoulders shaking with all of the emotions he has had to absorb in such a short time. And his father holds him through it, tears falling silently from his own eyes. Distantly, Lan Shui is aware of Han Guangjun stepping up beside them, of one of his arms wrapping around Wei Wuxian again, while the other comes to rest gently on Lan Shui's shoulder. A family. His family. It's like the meme with Stitch when he's like, "This is my family. It's little and broken, but good. Still good." A while later, once Lan Shui's tears have finally stopped falling, he steps back, wiping at his eyes, and looks up at his two fathers, now standing together with their arms around each other. He gives them a watery smile, And Wei Wuxian smiles back, and Han Guangjun looks back at him with soft affection in his eyes. Lan Sishui clears his throat, and not wanting to get emotional again, asks a question instead. How did Han Guangjun know about me? He came to Yiling once on a night hunt, and we ran into him in the market. Well, actually, you ran into him in the market. You'd gotten lost in the crowd, and you started crying and calling him father. Weird accent on that one. Oops. Wei Wuxian's tone is teasing, and Lan Sishui flushes pink. I didn't. Did I? He looks beseechingly up at Han Guangjun, but Han Guangjun only nods. That's... He clears his throat quickly, frantically, searching for something, anything to say. So you weren't raising me together. I mean, you two weren't. He trails off abruptly as he realizes exactly what he's asking, his cheeks going even redder. Wei Wuxian laughs. Together back then? No, we weren't. I was too busy being foolish and not realizing how your father felt about me.
You weren't foolish. I was the one who was unclear.
Well, now you're being pretty clear. Wei Wuxian smiles teasingly up at Han Guangjun, but then his expression changes, turning slightly tentative. So does that mean now we're...
Han Guangjun nods. If Wei Yong will have me.
A soft, delighted laugh from Wei Wuxian's lips. You and no one else. It has to be you. Only you.
Only you.
Han Guangjun repeats and kisses him deeply. Lan Sishui turns away abruptly, blushing furiously, and wondering with dawning horror if they're going to be like this from now on. But as he dashes off to find Jing Yi and the others, there's a new lightness in his chest. And Lan Sishui remembers the feel of Wei Wuxian's arms around him and the gentle warmth in Han Guangjun's eyes, and he thinks there are much worse things to get used to. Author's note. And there we have it. After this, the plot did indeed happen, just with a lot more making out. Oh no. Thank you for coming on this ride with me and for all of the lovely comments. I've enjoyed reading. I'm already planning my next Wuxian fic, so do keep an eye out for that. If you're interested in updates on when that will be starting, or Wuxian Screaming in general, come find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. Reader's note. I've heard about Blue Sky, but I've not explored it myself. I'm only on Tumblr, not socials. Back to the author's note. Also, if you enjoyed my writing and are interested in checking out some original work, I just released a book. Congratulations, author. Look at you go. It's called Legend of the Falcon Prince, and it's gay fantasy, disinherited prince times, do we say cross? Disinherited prince, I'm just going to go with / the royal guard, who's blackmailing him. Edit. Wait, hold up. You're telling me that I actually wrote and posted my first ever Lan Sishui POV scene on Sishui's birthday? And I didn't even know? Happy birthday to my favorite child. Here's your birthday fic, apparently. That's a funny coincidence. Well, Congratulations to me for finally finishing a multi-chapter podfic. Woot! Go me, I'm so excited. I'm gonna get this posted ASAP. I'm so excited. I can't hide it. Yeah, so, well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Bedtime Stories. I hope to be back with a new fic real soon.